Rome's fall echoed across trembling continents, but ashes hid embers still burning. A new power stirred within shadows. How did collapse give birth to empire? Eastern lands carried Rome's surviving legacy. Governors, generals, and scholars remained steadfast. Strength gathered where unity still lived. What force kept the empire breathing? 330 CE marks civilization's great turning. A new chapter opened beyond ancient ruins. Ambitions rose where old glory faded. What future awaited this eastern realm? Constantinople emerged as imperial rebirth. Walls shone with unbroken Roman authority. A capital forged from vision and destiny. Why did this city command the world? Its harbor welcomed ships from continents. Trade flourished beneath guarded golden gates. Merchants carried wealth across distant horizons. How did commerce power imperial rise? Emperor Constantine reshaped faith and rule. A Christian empire emerged from transformation. Religion merged with law, authority, identity. What compelled a ruler to change history? Spiritual vision guided imperial decisions boldly. Church and palace stood side by side. New symbols replaced Rome's ancient pantheon. How far could belief strengthen power? Constantinople sat between Europe and Asia. Armies watched crossroads of global empires. Control meant dominance over ancient trade. What destiny follows such unmatched geography? Fortress walls guarded civilization's last flame. Enemies surrounded, but never overwhelmed it. Strength endured through storms and centuries. What secret kept this empire unbroken? Thus dawned an empire spanning millennia. Culture, power, and faith reshaped the East. Its legacy shaped worlds still living today. How did Byzantium outlive its mighty predecessor? Imperial memory lived on after Rome. Eastern officials guarded ancient legal wisdom. Order shaped every corner of governance. Tradition carried authority across generations. Laws traveled east with disciplined purpose. Scribes preserved codes with careful devotion. Stability grew from structured written justice. Continuity defined the empire's early strength. Roman procedure guided every decision made. Courts followed patterns centuries old. Judges acted with strict inherited clarity. Justice remained predictable and deeply rooted. Administrative offices mirrored Roman foundations. Hierarchies kept bureaucracy balanced and efficient. Records flowed through disciplined clerical networks. Empire ran smoothly through organized structure. Eastern provinces trusted long-established systems. Familiar laws eased tensions between regions. Uniform standards kept differences from escalating. Unity formed through shared legal frameworks. Traditions strengthened identity within borders. Citizens recognized Rome's influence everywhere. Customs reminded them of ancient authority. Empires stood firm through remembered order. Old legal codes met new realities. Emperors adjusted rules without breaking continuity. Flexibility allowed traditions to remain relevant. Adaptation ensured survival through changing times. Roman civic culture shaped early policy. Governors respected limits placed by law. Power grew, but stayed carefully controlled. Structure prevented reckless political ambition. Imperial councils used Roman deliberation methods. Debates followed disciplined established protocols. Voices offered guidance with measured restraint. Consensus formed through structured thoughtful exchange. Taxation followed standardized Roman practices. Ledgers kept accounts with meticulous accuracy. Revenue flowed predictably year after year. Stability funded armies and public projects. Military administration echoed Roman discipline. Ranks followed clear chains of command. Logistics operated with inherited efficiency. Imperial defense relied on organized order. Training schools taught Roman legal theory. Young officials memorized centuries-old rulings. Knowledge passed carefully through generations. Wisdom preserved the empire's institutional backbone. Even ordinary disputes reflected Roman thinking. Neighbors argued within legal boundaries. Judges applied consistent, long-trusted principles. Society remained steady through predictable justice. Roman tradition anchored the Eastern Empire. Law shaped identity and political life. Order flowed from inherited administrative strength. Continuity birthed Byzantium's enduring character. A new capital rose from Byzantium. Hills overlooked waters shaping destiny. Builders envisioned power anchored in stone. Empire prepared for a protected future. Walls expanded across rugged terrain. Engineers calculated angles with precision. Defense became the city's living heartbeat. Strength radiated from every fortified arch. Massive ramparts dominated surrounding landscapes. Three-layered walls stunned approaching enemies. Stone towers guarded horizons with vigilance. Invaders feared the city's legendary resilience. Deep moats shielded outer defenses carefully. Water barriers slowed advancing armies drastically. Every step forward became an exhausting struggle. Fortifications turned assaults into hopeless attempts. The Golden Horn formed natural protection. Waters wrapped around city like armor. Harbors offered refuge and strategic control. Constantinople breathed through its guarded shores. Chain defenses sealed the mighty harbor. Iron links blocked hostile approaching fleets. Enemies halted before unbreakable barriers. Sea protection matched strength on land. Engineers studied threats year after year. Improvement never paused within workshops. Every generation strengthened existing defenses. Innovation defined the city's protective legacy. Battlements offered sweeping observation points. Guards scanned horizons with trained discipline. Signals traveled quickly across tower lines. Coordination ensured fast defensive responses. Citizens trusted their unyielding fortress. Confidence shaped identity within walls. Security fostered culture, learning, and growth. City thrived behind its invincible structure. Gates opened only under strict watch. Access followed careful inspection protocols. Security teams controlled movement relentlessly. Order preserved safety across crowded districts. Earthquakes tested ancient layered walls. Repairs strengthened their foundations further. Disaster became opportunity for improvement. Resilience etched itself into city stone. Sieges turned into legendary historical events. Walls resisted armies from every direction. Empires tried breaking Constantinople repeatedly. Its defenses answered with unshakable determination. Harsh winters challenged besieging invasions. Supplies within remained carefully protected. City endured cold pressures with discipline. Fortifications enhanced every season's advantage. Generations honored architects of survival. Legends praised builders with reverence. Their designs shaped destiny for centuries. Their walls protected worlds behind gates. Constantinople stood unmatched in defense. Its design reshaped medieval military thinking. Strength defined every edge of empire. Fortress became symbol of eternal resilience. Early emperors inherited fragile foundations. Borders trembled from internal political pressures. Power required careful measured consolidation efforts. Stability became their foremost guiding mission. Generals pledged loyalty through strategic reforms. Command structures tightened across military ranks. Discipline restored unity within armed forces. Empire strengthened its protective backbone again. Administrative councils reorganized under firm leadership. Corruption faced decisive immediate imperial action. Governance regained efficiency across distant provinces. Authority flowed smoothly from central command. Economy stabilized through controlled taxation policies. Revenue supported infrastructure revival programs. Trade routes flourished under renewed security. Prosperity returned to troubled eastern regions. Rebellions challenged new imperial authority. Emperors responded with balanced, determined force. Negotiations followed victories to restore calm. Peace replaced chaos across contested territories. Diplomats forged alliances with bordering powers. Careful dialogue prevented costly regional conflicts. Treaties eased tensions along unstable frontiers. Empire bought time to strengthen internally. Cities rebuilt after decades of uncertainty. Population regained trust in imperial order. Markets revived through consistent, stable governance. Urban centers blossomed with renewed life. Legal reforms clarified administrative responsibilities. Officials followed unified, standardized procedures empire-wide. Confusion faded from local bureaucracies quickly. Predictability strengthened everyday civic function. Church leaders cooperated with imperial rule. Religious stability reduced social internal divisions. Harmony formed among competing influential groups. Unity grew under balanced imperial authority. Education supported rising administrative talent. Schools trained future leaders with discipline. Knowledge flowed into growing political institutions. Wisdom guided decisions during turbulent transitions. Frontier defenses strengthened through massive projects. Forts protected vulnerable, long-exposed regions. Border armies gained renewed logistical support. Defense networks stabilized surrounding territories. Merchants invested confidently in trade. Goods traveled safely across protected roads. Wealth circulated between cities and countryside. Economic confidence fueled broader regional revival. Imperial courts projected controlled, unwavering authority. Subjects recognized strength behind every decree. Fear mixed with respect across provinces. Power held empire together through resolve. Renewed order shaped early Byzantine identity. Emperors crafted foundations for future greatness. Stability emerged from disciplined, consistent governance. Empire prepared for centuries of transformation. Faith reshaped identity across the empire. Church bells echoed through rising cities. Spiritual unity replaced old fractured beliefs. People felt guided by sacred authority. Emperors embraced Christianity with conviction. Divine sanction strengthened political legitimacy openly. Throne aligned with altar in harmony. Power gained new spiritual symbolic depth. Church councils defined doctrine with precision. Debates shaped foundations of Christian orthodoxy. Bishops influenced policies across imperial courts. Faith and governance intertwined with purpose. Temples transformed into vibrant Christian basilicas. Icons adorned walls with luminous devotion. Architecture expressed growing spiritual confidence. Cities reflected empire's sacred transformation. Missionaries carried teachings beyond borders. New converts strengthened Christianity's expanding presence. Faith bridged cultures through shared belief. Spiritual networks spread across regions. Religious leaders guided moral civic behavior. Sermons shaped values embraced by citizens. Christian ethics influenced daily life deeply. Society evolved with renewed spiritual direction. Festivals celebrated moments of holy remembrance. Communities gathered under unified sacred traditions. Joy flowed through empire-wide religious rituals. Culture flourished through shared spiritual identity. Monasteries protected ancient sacred writings. Scholars copied texts with patient devotion. Knowledge survived turbulent historical centuries. Learning thrived within monastic peaceful walls. Conflicts emerged between differing Christian interpretations. Imperial decrees attempted restoring doctrinal unity. Rifts tested empire's fragile spiritual harmony. Leadership balanced faith with political necessity. Laws reflected Christian moral influence. Reform strengthened protection for vulnerable citizens. Compassion entered administrative decision-making processes. Ethics shaped governance with deliberate intent. Clergy gained influence in imperial politics. Councils advised rulers during challenging decisions. Church authority balanced expanding imperial power. Partnership defined empire's cultural spiritual direction. Pilgrims traveled toward holy sacred sites. Journeys strengthened devotion across vast regions. Travelers shared stories of miraculous inspiration. Faith connected people across distant lands. Art flourished under Christian theological themes. Mosaics depicted saints with radiant symbolism. Beauty expressed empire's growing spiritual devotion. Creativity honored sacred eternal mysteries. Christianity anchored Byzantine cultural foundations. Faith shaped traditions for generations ahead. Spiritual unity strengthened empire's enduring identity. Religion guided destiny for centuries. Cultures blended within Constantinople's heart. Greek wisdom shaped intellectual daily life. Roman order structured political imperial systems. Eastern traditions added color and depth. Philosophers preserved classical ancient teachings. Libraries stored countless scrolls of knowledge. Scholars debated ideas with disciplined clarity. Learning thrived through inherited Greek heritage. Roman law guided civic administration strongly. Codes ensured fairness across diverse populations. Officials followed procedures with trained precision. Stability grew from structured legal roots. Eastern artistry enriched cultural expression everywhere. Colors shimmered through elaborate textile patterns. Designs carried influences from distant kingdoms. Craftsmanship elevated empire's visual identity. Markets overflowed with goods from everywhere. Spices arrived from Far Eastern caravans. Metals traveled through Roman trade routes. Merchants connected continents through bustling trade. Languages mingled within crowded, lively streets. Greek served administration and scholarly debate. Latin echoed through military disciplined ranks. Eastern dialects colored daily conversations richly. Cuisine blended flavors from many worlds. Herbs traveled from deserts and valleys. Roman recipes mixed with Eastern spices. Meals reflected empire's multicultural spirit. Architecture displayed a fusion of brilliance. Greek columns stood beside Eastern arches. Roman engineering strengthened massive structures. Design created harmony between many traditions. Music carried tones from varied cultures. Eastern rhythms shaped new melodic styles. Greek instruments added familiar classical sounds. Festivals echoed with blended artistic expression. Court ceremonies reflected shared influences. Robes showed patterns from distant regions. Rituals combined Roman and Eastern traditions. Imperial image mirrored unified cultural heritage. Daily life demonstrated constant cultural merging. People adopted customs from neighboring communities. Families shared traditions across diverse backgrounds. Harmony grew through natural blended coexistence. Religious practices reflected intercultural exchange. Icons displayed Eastern artistic spiritual depth. Theology used Greek philosophical foundations. Rituals carried Roman-era ceremonial echoes. Education pulled knowledge from multiple worlds. Students studied classical Greek philosophical texts. Learned Roman rhetoric for official service. Absorbed Eastern insights into broader understanding. Empire strengthened through cultural integration. Diversity became Byzantium's defining advantage. Unity formed from shared evolving traditions. Civilization blossomed through harmonious blending. Discover the secrets of Byzantium's mighty legacy. Subscribe now to explore history's grandest empires. Join us as past worlds come alive. Experience the rise, glory, and fall vividly. Scholars gathered under Justinian's command. Ancient scrolls filled marble-lit chambers. Wisdom waited within forgotten legal writings. Empire prepared for monumental legal transformation. Jurists studied centuries of Roman rulings. Conflicts between laws demanded careful resolution. Clarity became goal for imperial codifiers. Order would rise from overwhelming complexity. Justinian envisioned unified, timeless legislation. Law would guide empire with certainty. Every citizen deserved fairness through structure. Justice needed a consistent, trusted foundation. Texts were sorted with meticulous discipline. Contradictions faced immediate, decisive correction. Outdated rulings vanished from official memory. Only essential principles remained carefully preserved. Codifiers worked tirelessly through long nights. Lamp flames flickered over parchment drafts. Arguments refined every legal interpretation. Precision shaped the empire's new justice. The code collected foundational imperial statutes. It preserved laws from ancient emperors. Structure offered clarity across changing generations. Authority rested firmly on written order. The digest compiled juristic philosophical reasoning. Scholars summarized wisdom of Roman masters. Thought gathered from centuries of legal debate. Knowledge unified under imperial direction. The institutes trained future legal minds. Students learned principles through structured lessons. Education strengthened administrative civic competence. Young officials entered service with discipline. Novel laws addressed Justinian's contemporary issues. Reforms adapted justice to present realities. Empire evolved while honoring ancient tradition. Flexibility ensured longevity of legal heritage. Courts gained a single authoritative reference. Judges applied rules without confusion. Consistency replaced fragmented, chaotic rulings. Justice flowed smoothly through unified clarity. Provinces embraced standardized legal systems. Distant regions followed identical regulations. Unity strengthened through shared civic principles. Administration gained unprecedented imperial cohesion. Merchants trusted predictable commercial laws. Trade agreements became clearer and secure. Stability encouraged commerce across continents. Economy benefited from dependable legal frameworks. Citizens respected empire's growing judicial fairness. Legal equity shaped public daily life. People understood rights with greater certainty. Confidence strengthened loyalty toward imperial authority. Corpus Juris Civilis became historical masterpiece. Its influence stretched far beyond Byzantium. Western legal tradition followed its guidance. Justice echoed across centuries through Justinian. Vision, discipline, and wisdom shaped legacy. Law transformed empire's internal structure. Order defined a golden political age. Justinian forged justice for future civilizations. Justinian dreamed of restoring Roman unity. Old maps guided imperial military ambition. Memories of Western provinces fueled determination. Empire prepared for monumental reconquest campaigns. Generals studied terrain with strategic precision. Every coastline held echoes of Rome. Armies marched carrying centuries of legacy. Restoration became mission of national destiny. Belisarius emerged as brilliant commanding leader. His tactics outmatched powerful seasoned enemies. Courage shaped victories through calculated maneuvers. Genius guided every battlefield decision. North Africa faced Byzantine renewed strength. Vandal kingdom collapsed under swift assaults. People welcomed return of imperial authority. Province stabilized after generations of turmoil. Armies advanced west toward Italian landscapes. Gothic warriors resisted fiercely entrenched positions. Battles raged across hills and ancient cities. Rome's shadow fell over every confrontation. Sieges tested endurance on both sides. Walls trembled under relentless, determined assaults. Soldiers fought through hunger and disease. Victory required sacrifice across unforgiving battlegrounds. Belisarius reclaimed Rome with disciplined precision. Citizens witnessed banners rising once more. Empire regained symbolic ancient center. Triumph echoed across Mediterranean worlds. Campaigns continued through rugged Italian territories. Gothic strongholds resisted with stubborn determination. Winter storms slowed advancing imperial forces. Struggle consumed years of exhausting warfare. Spain saw renewed Byzantine presence again. Forces captured territories with measured force. Western coastline returned to imperial influence. Dream of unity appeared momentarily possible. Wars drained treasury at alarming pace. Logistics strained resources across vast distances. Supplies struggled reaching frontline soldiers. Empire endured heavy economic burdens. Plagues weakened strength behind the campaigns. Populations suffered devastating widespread losses. Military ranks thinned under deadly waves. Momentum slowed despite early decisive victories. Enemies regrouped across contested regained lands. Resistance grew stronger after initial defeats. Campaign exhaustion weakened imperial control. Territories slipped back into unstable conflict. Yet Justinian's ambition left lasting impact. Reconquest revived memory of united Rome. Hope shaped imagination of future generations. Legacy endured through symbolic restored provinces. Expansion defined height of imperial confidence. Victories demonstrated military disciplined brilliance. Empire touched far western horizons again. Justinian etched power across ancient world. Ruins of the old basilica remained. Flames had erased sacred ancient walls. Justinian envisioned something far greater rising, a monument worthy of divine eternity. Architects gathered under imperial commission. Anthemius and Isidore shaped bold designs. Geometry blended with spiritual architectural vision. Innovation guided every line and curve. Foundations shook under massive early attempts. Engineers recalculated stability with careful precision. Stone met mathematics in perfect harmony. Strength formed beneath future soaring domes. Workers filled city streets with materials. Marble arrived from distant imperial quarries. Columns traveled across seas on ships. Empire united to build sacred grandeur. Construction echoed across bustling Constantinople daily. Hammers rang through dawn's quiet air. Dust rose beneath tireless, determined labor. Hope grew with every completed arch. The dome challenged limits of engineering. Its weight defied familiar structural logic. Architects experimented with daring support systems. Faith and science shaped miraculous balance. Light poured through windows like divine radiance. Beams illuminated glittering golden mosaics. Heaven seemed to descend upon worshippers. Sacred atmosphere transformed human perception. Marble floors shimmered under shifting sunlight. Patterns reflected empire's cultural blending. Every stone carried meaning and legacy. Beauty elevated spirit beyond earthly concerns. Columns towered like guardians of eternity. Their designs honored Roman architectural heritage. Eastern influence shaped intricate carved details. Fusion created unmatched majestic harmony. Chanting filled the vast sacred interior. Voices rose through echoing vaulted spaces. Sound floated beneath the towering dome. Worship felt limitless and deeply transcendent. Justinian entered with triumphant reverence. He gazed upward toward shimmering celestial expanse. Emperor whispered words of awestruck gratitude. Solomon, I have surpassed thee. Hagia Sophia became empire's spiritual heart. Pilgrims marveled at its overwhelming beauty. Scholars studied its architectural groundbreaking brilliance. Artists drew inspiration from every sacred corner. Earthquakes tested strength of soaring dome. Repairs improved design after each tremor. Resilience became part of its legacy. Entrance matched its divine artistic symbolism. Centuries passed as empires rose around it. Hagia Sophia remained constant, unshaken grandeur. Its dome watched history unfold beneath. Sacred monument transcended boundaries of time. Architecture reached eternal heights within it. Light, space, and faith merged seamlessly. Human effort touched realm of divine. Hagia Sophia became wonder for all ages. Justinian pursued unmatched administrative control. Empire needed unified, disciplined governance systems. Every office answered to central authority. Power flowed directly through imperial command. Reforms reshaped structure of bureaucratic hierarchy. Old positions merged for clearer efficiency. Redundant roles disappeared under firm oversight. Order replaced scattered provincial confusion. Officials underwent strict performance evaluation. Corruption faced swift, decisive imperial punishment. Honesty became requirement for public service. Fear maintained discipline across administrative ranks. Provincial governors lost unchecked independence quickly. Their authority narrowed under revised laws. Central courts supervised every regional decision. Unity strengthened through controlled provincial governance. Taxation underwent major administrative reorganization. New assessments improved financial state accuracy. Revenue reached capital with dependable consistency. Empire funded massive reforms and campaigns. Logistical management improved across vast provinces. Supplies moved through standardized imperial channels. No region operated without strict coordination. Efficiency became empire's silent driving force. Legal courts followed unified imperial procedures. Judges adhered to standardized interpretations strictly. Confusion vanished from differing regional rulings. Justice flowed smoothly across the empire. Civil service training expanded significantly under Justinian. Young officials studied law and administration. Education shaped discipline within governmental workforce. Competence grew through structured imperial instruction. Imperial edicts traveled faster across distances. Courier networks improved communication between provinces. Orders arrived with reliable, timely delivery. Empire operated with synchronized administrative rhythm. Military administration strengthened strategic operations. Resources distributed through controlled official systems. Generals depended on efficient supply networks. Strength increased through better organized command. City prefects enforced imperial rule rigorously. Urban centers followed centrally planned regulations. Markets operated under watchful administrative eyes. Order shaped life within crowded districts. Secretariat chambers managed overwhelming state documents. Scribes copied decrees with careful precision. Records preserved every political significant decision. Memory of governance remained meticulously intact. Foreign diplomacy passed through central coordinated offices. Ambassadors followed strict imperial negotiation guidelines. Alliance treaties reflected careful state planning. Empire spoke with one unified voice. Control hardened imperial grip on power. Stability emerged from structured governing systems. Authority spread evenly throughout sprawling domains. Justinian shaped bureaucracy into disciplined legacy. Centralization defined golden era governance. Administration became backbone of imperial strength. Order brought capability for monumental achievements. Empire thrived under Justinian's unyielding discipline. Justinian uplifted culture across the empire. Artists received patronage for grand creations. Beauty became symbol of imperial ambition. Art flourished under Golden Age vision. Mosaic masters shaped shimmering sacred scenes. Gold tiles reflected heavenly divine radiance. Walls glowed with stories of faith. Art spoke through luminous spiritual imagery. Painters refined techniques with deeper symbolism. Colors carried meaning across sacred narratives. Brushstrokes captured emotion with delicate precision. Beauty guided worship toward higher reflection. Writers documented empire's unfolding achievements. Texts preserved victories and intellectual progress. Scholars recorded debates, shaping cultural identity. Literature framed legacy for generations ahead. Poets composed verses of imperial grandeur. Words honored rulers and ancient traditions. Emotion flowed through carefully crafted lines. Artistry strengthened collective cultural memory. Theologians debated questions of divine truth. Councils shaped doctrines accepted empire-wide. Ideas spread through scholarly monastic networks. Wisdom refined spiritual understanding profoundly. Scriptoria copied manuscripts with patient devotion. Monks preserved ancient classical philosophical knowledge. Texts survived centuries through careful protection. Learning continued despite political turbulent times. Libraries stored treasures of human insight. Shelves overflowed with sacred illuminated manuscripts. Students studied works from varied traditions. Knowledge connected generations through written memory. Libraries stored treasures of human insight. Shelves overflowed with sacred illuminated manuscripts. Students studied works from varied traditions. Knowledge connected generations through written memory. Musicians enriched worship with solemn melodies. Chants resonated through vast echoing spaces. Voices blended in deeply moving harmony. Faith strengthened through sacred musical expression. Philosophers revived classical intellectual traditions. Debates questioned nature of existence thoughtfully. Greek thought influenced spiritual contemplation widely. Inquiry shaped evolving Byzantine intellectual identity. Education expanded among rising urban elites. Schools taught rhetoric, philosophy, and theology. Youth prepared for service with refinement. Wisdom guided future administrative leadership. Public festivals celebrated artistic expression empire-wide. Crowds witnessed performances with deep enthusiasm. Tradition strengthened bonds among diverse communities. Culture united people beyond regional differences. Imperial support shaped a thriving artistic legacy. Creativity blossomed under state protection. Knowledge advanced through scholarship and devotion. Golden Age shined through cultural brilliance. Byzantine armies required unwavering elite warriors. Empire trusted soldiers of unmatched discipline. Loyalty mattered more than noble birth. Strength protected throne through turbulent centuries. Varangian Guard arrived from northern lands. Tall warriors carried axes with pride. Foreign origins ensured unshakable imperial loyalty. They served emperor above all else. Ceremonies welcomed them into sacred service. Oaths sworn before shimmering palace icons. Honor bound them to imperial commands. Duty defined every breath they took. Their armor gleamed beneath palace torchlight. Chainmail wrapped bodies in heavy protection. Helmets bore symbols of fierce origins. Presence alone inspired respect and fear. Battlefields echoed with their thunderous charge. Axes swung with devastating, unstoppable force. Enemies collapsed beneath overwhelming momentum. Varangians fought with terrifying, relentless strength. They guarded palace halls with vigilance. No intruder escaped their unwavering watch. Emperors slept safely behind their shields. Night remained peaceful under Varangian eyes. Foreign mercenaries joined ranks with pride. Service offered wealth, honor, and glory. Guard became symbol of diverse loyalty. Unity formed through shared sworn duty. Training created warriors of unmatched precision. Daily drills strengthened bodies and instincts. Discipline shaped reaction in every confrontation. Commitment forged unbreakable combat readiness. Varangians protected emperor during uprisings. Their fierce loyalty crushed rebellious threats. Political storms never shook their resolve. Guard preserved stability through violent turmoil. Ceremonial roles added grandeur to court. Processions shone with their disciplined presence. Imperial image grew through their majesty. Power radiated from their solemn formation. Legends described courage in distant campaigns. They fought fiercely across foreign battlefields. Their axes shaped outcomes of wars. Victory often followed their arrival. Fallen guards received honorable remembrance. Songs carried tales of their bravery. Memory lived across generations of warriors. Legacy strengthened identity of imperial defense. Guard adapted through changing military eras. Weapons evolved with advancing warfare techniques. Loyalty, however, remained always unchanged. Service continued without hesitation or doubt. Varangians became symbol of imperial power. Strength, loyalty, and fearlessness defined them. Guard embodied heart of Byzantine resilience. Their presence shaped centuries of security. Elite units ensured empire survival. Courage protected city, emperor, and legacy. Varangians stood firm through shifting history. Their axes guarded future of Byzantium. Byzantine seas held constant looming danger. Enemy fleets challenged imperial maritime control. Empire needed weapon of unmatched dominance. Greek fire answered that desperate need. Secret formulas guarded with absolute secrecy. Only select families knew ancient mixture. Knowledge passed through whispers of loyalty. Empire protected recipe with deadly vigilance. Flames erupted fiercely upon command. Liquid fire clung to wooden holes. Water failed to extinguish burning destruction. Terror spread across enemy trembling crews. Siphon crews trained with precision discipline. No mistake tolerated during naval combat. Pressure pumps required coordinated rapid action. Skill shaped success of every attack. Ships approached enemies with fearless confidence. No rival matched destructive fiery force. Flames roared across darkened sea waves. Night battles turned into blazing nightmares. Greek fire shifted balance of warfare. Fleets avoided confrontation with Byzantines. Reputation alone caused enemies hesitation. Fear guarded empire without drawing sword. Engineers improved delivery mechanisms continually. Portable siphons aided close-range combat. Flamethrowers appeared on fortified city walls. Innovation strengthened every defensive encounter. Imperial Navy mastered tactical deployment strategies. Wind direction calculated before each attack. Positioning ensured maximum burning devastation. Firestorms consumed opponents with terrifying speed. Enemies attempted stealing guarded formulas repeatedly. Spies failed to breach impenetrable secrecy. Byzantine loyalty protected empire's deadliest creation. Knowledge remained locked within trusted lineage. Historical records described unstoppable fiery devastation. Chroniclers wrote trembling eyewitness accounts. Sea battles turned into blinding infernos. Survivors never forgot haunting brilliance. Greek fire saved Constantinople from invasions. Arab fleets retreated under overwhelming flames. Victory ensured survival of Byzantine sovereignty. Empire endured through brilliance of innovation. Weapon became symbol of imperial power. Its flames represented skill and resilience. Mastery defined empire's naval superiority. Strength radiated across Mediterranean waters. Centuries passed with formula still hidden. Not even conquerors uncovered its secrets. Mystery deepened legacy of Byzantine mastery. Greek fire lived beyond fall of empire. Weapon shaped history through blazing triumph. Fear protected coastlines for generations. Flames secured dominance over hostile seas. Greek fire forged and challenged maritime supremacy. Stone rose like a frozen storm. Walls guarded an empire's trembling heart. Centuries bowed before their entrance. Power lived behind layered strength. Engineers shaped barriers defying time. Bricks aligned with perfect defensive purpose. Each section carried generations of vigilance. Every stone remembered approaching danger. Triple defenses circled the imperial capital. Outer walls warned advancing enemy forces. Inner lines absorbed siege after siege. Strength deepened through calculated construction. Moats widened fear across enemy ranks. Depth concealed careful traps beneath water. Invaders faced obstacles crafted by mastery. Defense flowed with brutal strategic precision. Gateways remained narrow, fortified, heavily shielded. Arrows watched every desperate enemy approach. Steel guarded thresholds through countless centuries. Constantinople allowed no careless weaknesses. Earthquakes shook empires, but not walls. Damage met swift imperial repair teams. Strength returned faster than destruction spread. The capital refused vulnerability's shadow. These walls shaped Byzantium's destiny. Every siege tested their unbroken spirit. Enemies learned caution, approaching their might. Legends formed around their impossible entrance. Empires rose, shattered, vanished around them. Yet Constantinople's defenses endured with pride. Time respected their loyal stone guardians. History bowed before their silent power. Invaders saw hope fade near them. Towers dominated landscapes with intimidating height. Archers watched movements with unwavering discipline. Courage cracked beneath their relentless presence. The walls protected faith and empire. Residents slept beneath strategic confidence nightly. Safety echoed through every fortified street. Strength shaped life within Byzantine boundaries. Winter storms battered unyielding stone ramparts. Snow layered quietly over imperial defenses. Guard posts burned lamps through dark nights. Vigilance warmed cold shadows silently. Season after season tested the walls. Storms, armies, and time challenged entrance. Yet their foundation remained fiercely unshaken. Constancy defined the empire's living shield. These defenses represented Byzantine resilience. Stone transformed into history's greatest protector. Centuries trusted their towering embrace fully. Civilization survived behind their eternal guardianship. Here the empire found lasting refuge. Here strength met ambition with force. Here survival became a sacred duty. Here walls shaped an unbroken legacy. Border threats shaped Byzantine military thinking. Generals studied enemies with relentless precision. Maps marked shifting dangers across continents. Strategy evolved faster than approaching armies. Persian forces tested early imperial strength. Battles raged across rugged eastern frontiers. Commanders countered tactics with disciplined formations. Defense became an art of endurance. Arab expansions surged with fierce momentum. Desert armies advanced toward imperial lands. Byzantines adapted strategies for shifting climates. Survival demanded constant tactical reinvention. Mountain passes became guarded defensive corridors. Scouts watched movements across distant ridges. Rapid messengers signaled sudden enemy threats. Information flowed faster than swords drawn. Fortified cities anchored deep defensive networks. Walls strengthened morale across frontier regions. Supplies moved securely behind guarded lines. Logistics shaped war more than weapons. Ambush tactics disrupted advancing enemy columns. Small forces struck with precise timing. Retreats transformed into controlled lethal traps. Terrain itself became imperial ally. Byzantine cavalry mastered sudden counterattacks. Riders moved gracefully across uneven landscapes. Speed delivered overwhelming strategic advantages. Enemy ranks faltered under rapid pressure. Diplomacy softened threats between major wars. Tributes bought precious time for recovery. Envoys negotiated fragile border agreements. Peace served imperial survival more effectively. Seasonal campaigns influenced military planning. Winter favored defenders guarding mountainous terrain. Summer exposed weaknesses across arid plains. Nature shaped every Byzantine strategic decision. Signals lit towers along frontier walls. Flames transmitted warnings at nightfall. Communication united garrisons across distant provinces. Coordination prevented sudden catastrophic breakthroughs. Generals studied enemy cultures carefully. Understanding motivations strengthened defensive predictions. Knowledge offered tools for strategic anticipation. Wisdom guided choices under immense pressure. Elite units guarded vulnerable battlefield flanks. Experienced warriors reinforced collapsing defensive lines. Courage steadied troops when fear rose. Unity saved armies during darkest moments. Byzantium survived by embracing adaptability. Old strategies blended with innovative reforms. Strength flowed from disciplined tactical evolution. Survival demanded continuous strategic transformation. Ottoman expansion introduced a final storm. Massive armies pressed relentlessly toward Constantinople. Byzantines resisted with unwavering imperial resolve. Courage met destiny across crumbling borders. Through centuries of unending external threats, defense shaped the empire's beating soul. Every strategy carried history's heavy weight. Byzantium endured through disciplined defensive genius. Frontiers stretched across mountains and rivers. Soldiers guarded lands with tireless vigilance. Every province held strategic importance clearly. Empire survival depended on disciplined defense. Garrisons reinforced towns along critical borders. Walls, towers, and fortresses marked territory. Commanders inspected every post carefully daily. Preparedness ensured readiness for sudden attacks. Troops rotated to maintain fighting strength. Rest and training balanced relentless duties. Veterans instructed new recruits in discipline. Knowledge passed through generations of soldiers. Supplies moved steadily across rugged terrain. Food, weapons, and equipment reached soldiers. Logistics became backbone of frontier stability. Efficiency preserved empire's fighting capabilities. Local populations aided defensive strategies willingly. Citizens supported garrisons with essential labor. Villages reinforced walls and supply chains. Cooperation strengthened empire's border resilience. Spies monitored enemy movements continuously. Intelligence guided troop deployment accurately. Information flowed swiftly to central command. Surprise attacks were often anticipated successfully. Fortified towns acted as logistical hubs. Troops gathered before launching defensive campaigns. Strongholds held during extended sieges efficiently. Resilience became hallmark of frontier provinces. Commanders adapted to enemy innovations constantly. Tactics evolved with changing threats effectively. Flexibility ensured survival despite overwhelming odds. Experience guided every strategic adjustment carefully. Seasonal rotations allowed sustained defensive posture. Spring campaigns prevented early enemy advances. Winter fortifications preserved strength against harsh climates. Planning aligned with natural cycles meticulously. Civil administration supported military requirements faithfully. Taxation funded frontier garrisons reliably. Local governance reinforced imperial military decisions. Integration ensured coordinated provincial defense strategies. Communication lines connected distant outposts securely. Messengers traveled across mountains and valleys. Coordination allowed rapid responses to threats. Speed often determined success or failure. Soldiers endured harsh conditions for empire. Morale maintained through strict discipline and reward. Camaraderie strengthened unit cohesion persistently. Commitment defined frontier armies' enduring loyalty. Battles tested strength of disciplined forces. Even small engagements shaped regional stability. Strategic victories preserved border province security. Empire remained resilient through continuous vigilance. Generations maintained knowledge of frontier defense. Tradition shaped training and tactical doctrine. Experience guided future military planning effectively. Wisdom passed from seasoned commanders quietly. Frontier maintenance defined Byzantium's long-term survival. Borders formed living lines of empire's heartbeat. Every province contributed to empire's endurance. Discipline preserved strength across sprawling territories. Scholar halls glowed with candle-lit devotion. Scrolls and manuscripts lined ancient shelves. Wisdom of Greece survived empire's turmoil. Philosophers debated under vaulted marble ceilings. Text after text recorded timeless ideas. Logic, rhetoric, ethics shaped young minds. Teachers guided pupils through classical thought. Knowledge formed foundation of Byzantine intellect. Libraries became treasure troves of enlightenment. Papyrus, parchment, carefully copied by scribes. Centuries of learning passed unbroken through generations. Memory of civilization survived through meticulous care. Greek philosophy influenced law and governance. Reason and logic guided imperial decisions. Scholars advised emperors on difficult matters. Wisdom shaped policy across vast provinces. Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates inspired debates. Students studied ethics alongside practical leadership. Ideas shaped culture, science, and theology. Thought formed bridge between past and present. Schools preserved classical curricula diligently every year. Education emphasized discipline, debate, and understanding. Young citizens learned critical reasoning skills. Training produced capable administrators and thinkers. Commentaries expanded understanding of ancient texts. Scholarship combined old ideas with new insights. Byzantine thinkers synthesized knowledge with innovation. Civilization progressed through careful intellectual stewardship. Philosophical teachings influenced religious interpretation subtly. Doctrines integrated logic with spiritual understanding. Faith and reason coexisted in intellectual discourse. Church scholars studied alongside secular philosophers. Translation preserved texts from Greek to Latin. Knowledge traveled across empires and regions. Wisdom reached distant corners of the world. Ideas connected Byzantium with the wider world. Collectors guarded rare manuscripts jealously. Libraries became symbols of imperial prestige. Intellectual life defined elite urban culture. Learning became measure of social distinction. Students copied texts with careful hands. Scribes learned through years of patient practice. Every letter preserved knowledge for posterity. Writing became sacred act of transmission. Teachers nurtured critical thinking among elites. Discussion halls echoed with disciplined dialogue. Arguments sharpened minds for administration duties. Reason guided empire's intellectual life. Commentaries and treatises influenced generations after. Ideas traveled across Mediterranean scholarly networks. Philosophical legacy shaped Byzantine worldview permanently. Thought became thread linking past and present. Preservation ensured empire's cultural identity endured. Knowledge remained shielded from conquest or fire. Classical wisdom informed Byzantine art, science, law. Civilization thrived on continuity and learning. Golden light shimmered across sacred mosaics. Tesserae captured heaven's radiant divine brilliance. Walls told stories of saints and emperors. Every surface reflected devotion and power. Artists labored in quiet candlelit workshops. Hands placed each tiny colored stone. Precision transformed vision into eternal beauty. Creation demanded patience and inspired focus. Icons became portals to spiritual worlds. Painted faces glowed with holy serenity. Believers prayed before luminous sacred images. Faith flowed through every brushstroke carefully. Illuminated manuscripts glimmered on library shelves. Gold leaf decorated religious and historical texts. Every page radiated knowledge and devotion. Beauty and scholarship intertwined in delicate harmony. Churches and palaces displayed mosaic masterpieces proudly. Ceilings, walls, and floors became sacred galleries. Light reflected from polished stone surfaces. Spectators marveled at divine artistic genius. Patterns blended Eastern influence with Roman precision. Colors told stories of faith and empire. Cultural synthesis shaped every intricate design. Byzantine art celebrated empire's spiritual identity. Monks copied sacred texts with reverence. Illumination enriched every carefully scripted page. Illustrations depicted biblical stories with clarity. Scholarship and art strengthened spiritual learning. Public spaces showcased statues, reliefs, and columns. Imperial imagery reminded citizens of authority. Visual art reinforced cohesion across cities. Beauty became language of political and religious power. Artisans trained apprentices in rigorous disciplines. Skills passed down through disciplined mentorship. Technique evolved, but tradition remained strong. Legacy survived through every dedicated student. Mosaics adorned holy altars with grandeur. Colors glimmered beneath sunlight and candlelight. Worshippers felt presence of divine energy. Space became transformed by sacred imagery. Patrons funded ambitious projects across Constantinople. Emperors commissioned works to express devotion. Art supported authority and inspired loyalty. Beauty became intertwined with imperial propaganda. Icons survived centuries of political turmoil. Sacred images preserved identity during sieges. Art endured beyond wars and disasters. Symbolism shaped collective spiritual memory. Illuminated manuscripts preserved knowledge and faith. Text and image coexisted in perfect harmony. Scholarship continued alongside artistic devotion. Creation became sacred, disciplined act of expression. Every work reflected empire's cultural depth. Art expressed wealth, faith, and sophistication. Byzantine civilization thrived through visual brilliance. Beauty became language understood across the empire. Church bells echoed across Constantinople's streets. Faith permeated every palace and home. Orthodox Christianity shaped daily public life. Belief guided hearts and imperial decisions. Cathedrals rose with soaring marble arches. Icons glimmered beneath golden mosaic ceilings. Worshippers knelt in reverent hushed silence. Devotion intertwined with empire's political power. Priests led services with solemn authority. Chants floated through vast sacred interiors. Voices carried prayers across crowded nave. Rituals marked passage of holy seasons. Monks retreated into cloisters of silence. Prayer and labor defined their existence. Manuscripts preserved sacred scripture meticulously. Scholarship and piety coexisted in harmony. Imperial ceremonies reinforced church's sacred role. Emperors entered beneath priestly golden banners. Divine blessing legitimized political authority openly. Faith and state became inseparable pillars. Pilgrimages connected distant provinces to Constantinople. Believers traveled across mountains and rivers. Relics inspired devotion and civic loyalty. Holy sites united empire's diverse population. Councils debated doctrine with rigorous precision. Decisions shaped orthodoxy for centuries ahead. Theological disputes guided political and spiritual life. Clarity defined faith across sprawling territories. Icons mediated personal and public devotion. Prayer before images connected human and divine. Sacred art reinforced spiritual belief consistently. Faith expressed through color, gold, and design. Festivals celebrated holy events throughout the year. Processions filled streets with music and incense. Communities bonded through shared sacred traditions. Religion strengthened social cohesion profoundly and visibly. Charity flowed from church to citizens often. Monasteries and convents offered care for poor. Faith guided moral obligations across society. Compassion extended through religious institutions carefully. Education centered on religious teachings primarily. Children learned scripture, hymns, and ethics. Monks instructed future clergy and literate youth. Knowledge rooted in faith shaped empire's identity. Eastern liturgy echoed through every public gathering. Ceremonies reflected centuries of spiritual heritage. Rituals carried cultural as well as religious meaning. Orthodoxy united empire in shared experience. Religious art reinforced theology across visual media. Mosaics and icons depicted sacred narratives vividly. Devotion was visible in palace and church. Beauty reinforced spiritual life consistently. Clerical hierarchy mirrored imperial governance subtly. Archbishops advised emperors with careful counsel. Power flowed alongside religious authority seamlessly. Faith guided rulers in temporal decisions. Orthodox Christianity defined Byzantine cultural identity. Every citizen encountered religion in daily life. Spirituality shaped morality, law, and art. Belief became foundation of imperial civilization. At the empire's pinnacle sat the emperor. Golden robes gleamed beneath palace chandeliers. Power radiated through every courtly chamber. Subjects bowed before authorities commanding presence. Nobles controlled lands with inherited prestige. Wealth flowed from estates to imperial coffers. Influence shaped politics across city and province. Marriage alliances strengthened noble family power. Merchants navigated bustling trade networks daily. Markets overflowed with goods from distant lands. Ships carried silk, spices, and precious metals. Commerce connected Constantinople to the wider world. Artisans labored with skilled patient hands. Workshops echoed with hammer and chisel. Craftsmanship reflected both function and beauty. Products adorned homes, churches, and palaces alike. Peasants tilled fields sustaining urban populations. Labor produced grain, olive oil, and wine. Harvests fed city streets and frontier garrisons. Life remained harsh yet vital for empire. Officials oversaw taxes with precise calculation. Revenue ensured military and administrative strength. Bureaucracy bridged gaps between ruler and populace. Law structured interaction across social ranks. Education separated elites from common citizens. Scholars, priests, and officials accessed specialized knowledge. Literacy defined status and societal opportunity. Knowledge became currency for influence and power. Ceremonies reinforced hierarchy through ritual display. Processions showcased wealth and imperial grandeur. Visual symbols reminded citizens of social order. Pageantry maintained obedience and collective respect. Marriage and family preserved noble influence carefully. Inheritance determined land, wealth, and political connections. Generational continuity sustained elite dominance steadily. Family networks became backbone of political stability. Guilds organized artisan life strategically and socially. Members learned craft, discipline, and trade secrets. Collective strength protected skills and economic interests. Artisan communities shaped urban cultural identity. Slaves performed labor in households and estates. They remained invisible yet crucial for production. Freedom existed only through manumission, carefully granted. Life remained bounded by masters' imposed limits. Military service offered social mobility occasionally. Soldiers earned land or titles through valor. Bravery elevated status within local hierarchies. Empire rewarded loyalty and disciplined service. Religion influenced rank and moral expectations strongly. Clergy held authority alongside secular leadership. Faith intertwined with law and civic life. Moral conduct defined social reputation consistently. Festivals and ceremonies displayed each class clearly. Spectators witnessed order through choreographed grandeur. Participation reinforced belonging within empire's structure. Hierarchy maintained unity through visible tradition. Society depended on cooperation across class lines. Each role contributed to empire's enduring stability. Interdependence ensured survival and prosperity steadily. Hierarchy became foundation of Byzantine civilization. Streets overflowed with crowds of citizens. Music echoed through arches and open plazas. Banners fluttered above every bustling square. Anticipation thrummed through the city's heart. Processions carried emperors beneath golden canopies. Soldiers marched in disciplined synchronized formations. Priests blessed the gathered multitude reverently. Pageantry symbolized unity across diverse populations. Colors reflected sunlight in dazzling brilliance. Mosaics and banners mirrored imperial glory. Art and architecture framed every ceremonial path. Visual splendor reinforced devotion and obedience. Chariots rolled through cobbled, polished streets. Horses trotted in ceremonial disciplined pace. Crowds cheered as nobles and merchants passed. Everyone witnessed hierarchy displayed through spectacle. Sacred festivals honored saints and martyrs. Religious ritual intertwined with civic celebration. Processions reinforced spiritual and temporal authority. Faith united communities across the empire. Music carried through crowded marketplaces and plazas. Harp, flute, and drum shaped ceremonial rhythm. Every note reflected order, tradition, and prestige. Sound became instrument of political influence. Citizens brought offerings for divine blessing. Fruits, candles, and coins lined ceremonial routes. Participation reinforced belonging within empire structure. Unity strengthened through shared collective experience. Military parades displayed discipline and loyalty. Soldiers' formations demonstrated strength and vigilance. Weapons gleamed beneath sunlight and golden banners. Empire's power projected visually and symbolically. Athletic contests entertained public and elite alike. Competitions honored gods, heroes, and emperors. Victories inspired pride and civic identity. Skill and strength celebrated communal values. Banquets followed with music, dancing, and storytelling. Tales of empire's victories spread among citizens. Feasts reinforced imperial generosity and cohesion. Celebration became instrument of societal harmony. Civic ceremonies marked legal and seasonal events. Courts, councils, and assemblies joined festivities. Administrative power blended seamlessly with spectacle. Law and tradition became performance and memory. Costumes reflected rank, office, and religious devotion. Colors, fabrics, and jewelry marked social position. Every detail communicated hierarchy and respect. Visual cues strengthened order and loyalty. Triumphal arches framed procession's grand approach. Symbols of conquest inspired awe and unity. Architecture and pageantry reinforced imperial narrative. Every element carried deliberate political meaning. Children watched wide-eyed, learning societal roles. Future citizens absorbed lessons of hierarchy and duty. Participation educated next generation of loyal subjects. Tradition passed through ritual experience continuously. Festivals strengthened the empire across generations. Unity grew through spectacle, ritual, and pageantry. Citizens, nobles, and clergy shared communal identity. Empire endured through ritualized collective memory. Pageantry became instrument of culture and governance. Celebration reflected power, faith, and continuity. Through ceremony, Byzantium bound its people. Festivals shaped loyalty, pride, and enduring unity. Ships crowded the Golden Horn harbor. Sails glimmered beneath the morning sun. Merchants called across wooden bustling docks. Goods from distant lands flowed endlessly. Spices from Arabia filled fragrant air. Silk arrived from the Chinese east. Grain traveled down rivers from fertile plains. Luxury items dazzled noble and common alike. Caravans reached city gates over rugged terrain. Camel trains carried treasures across mountains. Silk, jewels, and precious metals exchanged hands. Every arrival expanded empire's global connections. Marketplaces overflowed with voices and color. Coins clinked, weighing value and trust. Bargains struck beneath arches and awnings. Trade became lifeblood of Constantinople's wealth. Dock workers unloaded goods with practiced precision. Ships discharged cargo under careful supervision. Merchants tallied inventories meticulously daily. Order maintained despite constant bustle and chaos. Trade routes linked Europe to distant Asia. Byzantium became crossroads of commerce and culture. Information traveled alongside merchandise on roads. Knowledge moved through caravans as well. Customs officials monitored each arriving shipment. Taxes flowed steadily into imperial treasury. Revenue funded army, bureaucracy, and infrastructure. Economy supported empire's enduring strength. Guilds ensured quality of exported goods. Craftsmen maintained high standards of production. Reputation strengthened Byzantine influence abroad. Merchants trusted products across distant markets. Constantinople hosted foreign ambassadors and traders. Diplomacy and commerce intertwined seamlessly here. Negotiations occurred over silk and gold. Alliances formed through shared economic interest. Ports defended by naval fleets vigilantly. Merchants traded securely behind protective walls. Economic stability required military support consistently. Commerce depended on safety and vigilance. Luxury goods symbolized imperial wealth and power. Silk garments adorned noble and clergy alike. Jewelry displayed status across city streets. Products reinforced hierarchy and societal prestige. Taxes, tolls, and tariffs maintained order. Officials balanced collection with trade encouragement. Economic policy ensured prosperity and control. Wealth circulated under careful imperial supervision. Seasonal wines dictated maritime schedules precisely. Sailors navigated Bosphorus currents carefully. Storms tested patience of daring merchants. Yet trade continued without ceasing ever. Merchants forged networks across continents tirelessly. Constantinople connected Europe, Asia, and beyond. Goods, culture, and ideas passed through. City became heart of Mediterranean commerce. Wealth from trade strengthened empire's resilience. Economic prosperity underpinned military and administration. Strategic location ensured control over critical passages. Byzantium thrived where continents and seas converged. Gold coins gleamed beneath imperial treasury lights. The solidus represented wealth and stability. Merchants trusted its consistent pure value. Trade flowed smoothly across empire's expanse, minted in Constantinople's careful guarded workshops. Each coin stamped with emperor's revered image. Designs symbolized authority and economic reliability. Trusting currency strengthened Byzantine commerce. Across provinces, solidus maintained consistent standard. Farmers, merchants, and soldiers accepted it equally. Wealth moved seamlessly between urban centers. Economy relied on currency's unwavering confidence. Prices stabilized through disciplined coinage regulation. Inflation prevented by strict imperial oversight. Economic order reinforced across cities and towns. Merchants prospered under predictable monetary system. Tributes and taxes collected in solidus. Treasury funded military campaigns and public works. Empire expanded without destabilizing financial foundation. Coins represented both wealth and imperial power. Gold flowed from mines and trade alike. Every coin carefully weighed for accuracy. Fineness ensured trust in distant markets. Byzantium's reputation strengthened through monetary reliability. Merchants exchanged coins across distant borders. Solidus accepted in Mediterranean and Near East. Trade networks thrived on standardized currency. Connections expanded wealth and diplomatic influence. Currency symbolized imperial authority beyond armies. Coins displayed emperor's image as reassurance. Subjects recognized ruler through every minted piece. Money became a medium of political presence. Counterfeiting faced harsh and decisive punishment. Crime threatened economic stability and order. Guarded workshops prevented fraudulent coin production. Trust remained intact across generations steadily. Treasury maintained reserves for crises and warfare. Coins funded defense and border garrisons effectively. Financial planning reinforced empire's long-term survival. Economy supported strategic military operations reliably. Solidus endured across centuries of rule. Even foreign powers recognized its stable value. Legacy of reliability defined Byzantine financial system. Wealth and trust became inseparable symbols. Urban markets thrived under monetary certainty. Traders priced goods with confidence and fairness. Commerce expanded with predictable coinage reliability. Economic life strengthened through solidus consistency. Imperial coins reflected cultural and religious imagery. Symbols reinforced unity across empire's territories. Artistry combined with function and political purpose. Currency became messenger of empire's enduring message. Financial stability allowed long-term infrastructure investment. Roads, aqueducts, and walls strengthened empire. Coins transformed economic energy into lasting legacy. Every solidus carried power beyond material value. Fields stretched across fertile Byzantine plains. Farmers tilled soil with patient labor. Grain, olives, and wine fed empire. Harvests sustained cities and frontier armies. Irrigation channels guided life, giving water carefully. Crops thrived under sunlight and human care. Seasonal rhythms dictated planting and harvesting. Food security depended on disciplined cultivation. Vast estates supplied urban marketplaces reliably. Merchants transported produce into Constantinople daily. City populations relied on rural diligence. Strength of empire grew from fields. Farmers harvested grain for military campaigns. Armies marched fueled by gold and wheat. Food ensured readiness across distant frontiers. Supply lines bridged countryside with battlefield. Livestock provided meat, milk, and leather. Horses and oxen aided transportation efficiently. Animals supported agriculture and military strength. Life and labor intertwined across countryside. Vineyards produced wine for both court and common. Olive groves offered oil for kitchens and lamps. Rural labor shaped wealth of urban centers. Agriculture became backbone of empire's sustenance. Seasonal festivals marked planting and harvest. Communities celebrated work with ritual and song. Shared labor reinforced social cohesion naturally. Tradition connected land, people, and empire. Storage granaries protected harvest from spoilage. Surplus prepared empire for harsh winters. Stocks fed armies during extended campaigns. Planning preserved stability across urban centers. Taxes collected in produce supported imperial treasury. Grain shipments reached garrisons and city markets. Revenue sustained administration, army, and construction. Farming linked economy and governance effectively. Irrigation canals crossed plains like silver veins. Engineers ensured water reached distant fields. Innovation improved yields and sustained population. Technology reinforced empire's agricultural resilience. Villages supplied both urban and military needs. Peasants labored under watchful landowners carefully. Their efforts preserved empire's everyday survival. Labor fed civilization across vast distances. Seasonal pests and droughts threatened stability. Mitigation required careful observation and planning. Farmers adapted techniques to unpredictable conditions. Knowledge passed down ensured consistent yields. Harvest festivals honored gods and laborers alike. Gratitude reflected spiritual and practical recognition. Community bonds strengthened through shared agricultural work. Celebration connected land, people, and authority. Byzantium's army relied on rural support. Crops fueled campaigns along distant frontiers. Supplies ensured endurance in prolonged warfare. Agriculture became strategic foundation for empire. Fields and farms defined empire's resilience. Sustenance linked countryside, city, and soldier. Life of empire depended on cultivated land. Harvest shaped both daily life and destiny. Caravans arrived from distant eastern lands. Silk shimmered beneath the morning sunlight. Spices perfumed bustling marketplace alleys. Exotic goods dazzled merchants and citizens. Grain traveled from fertile northern plains. Sacks piled high in city warehouses. Food sustained markets, armies, and palace banquets. Every shipment connected empire to distant regions. Jewels, perfumes, and fine cloth captivated buyers. Luxury items showcased wealth and prestige. Elite households displayed treasures with careful pride. Trade reflected social hierarchy and refinement. Ships crossed the Bosphorus with precious cargo. Mariners navigated currents, storms, and shifting winds. Trade depended on skill, timing, and vigilance. Every voyage carried wealth and imperial influence. Merchants negotiated deals in crowded open markets. Coins exchanged hands for valued commodities. Bargains required knowledge, patience, and careful calculation. Commerce thrived on trust and reputation alike. Silk routes connected Byzantium to the east. Caravans traversed mountains, deserts, and rivers. Ideas traveled alongside material goods constantly. Cultural exchange flowed with every journey. Trade guilds ensured quality and fairness strictly. Craftsmen maintained standards for imported and local goods. Reputation shaped future commercial partnerships carefully. Skill, precision, and trust defined success. Markets buzzed with energy and colorful displays. Merchants hailed customers with practiced eloquence. Goods reflected empire's wealth, power, and taste. Every transaction carried social and economic weight. Luxury items symbolized imperial authority visibly. Emperors displayed exotic silk in grand ceremonies. Courtly pageantry intertwined with material splendor. Wealth reinforced loyalty and civic pride simultaneously. Spices flavored food across the Mediterranean Empire. Perfumes and incense scented churches and homes. Every product connected empire to distant lands. Trade shaped Byzantine cultural identity consistently. Grain shipments fed urban centers reliably. Supply chains ensured Constantinople's bustling markets. Food security strengthened empire's political stability. Commerce and sustenance intertwined seamlessly in life. Trade routes evolved to meet growing demands. New connections expanded empire's economic horizons. Markets reflected empire's reach across continents. Goods shaped wealth, influence, and diplomacy simultaneously. Artisans transformed imported materials into fine products. Jewelry, textiles, and decorated vessels flourished. Craftsmanship elevated simple trade into cultural expression. Luxury shaped both economy and identity. Taxes on imported and exported goods funded administration. Revenue strengthened army, bureaucracy, and city works. Trade became lifeblood of imperial stability. Wealth ensured survival through turbulent centuries. Constantinople remained crossroads of commerce and culture. Every ship, caravan, and market echoed influence. Silk, spices, grain, and luxury goods connected. Trade defined Byzantium's enduring global significance. Workshops hummed with energy across city streets. Artisans shaped metal, wood, and cloth. Skill and precision defined every crafted product. Quality reflected pride of Byzantine laborers. Guilds organized craftsmen into disciplined networks. Apprentices learned from masters over years. Standards enforced consistency across urban production. Collective knowledge ensured survival of craft traditions. Silversmiths and jewelers created exquisite works. Coins, jewelry, and religious icons impressed visitors. Luxury and devotion merged in careful artistry. Crafts sustained both economy and cultural identity. Bakers and brewers supplied daily urban life. Bread, wine, and oil reached every household. Production connected city to rural surroundings. Food remained cornerstone of metropolitan stability. Textile workshops produced silk, linen, and wool. Merchants sold fabrics across local and foreign markets. Quality reputation ensured thriving commercial networks. Craftsmanship shaped both economy and social prestige. Guilds maintained fair competition among members. Rules prevented undercutting and market disruption. Every artisan contributed to collective prosperity. Unity strengthened trade across sprawling urban centers. Metal workers forged weapons, tools, and utensils. Precision enhanced both military and domestic life. Products supported army, palace, and ordinary households. Craft directly influenced empire strength and resilience. Workshops trained apprentices in rigorous discipline. Hands learned techniques passed down centuries. Skill became a mark of social identity. Mastery ensured continuity of Byzantine traditions. Guild halls became centers for social coordination. Meetings addressed disputes, quality, and production planning. Organization ensured smooth functioning of urban economies. Collaboration maintained standards and competitive advantage. Ceramicists shaped vessels for domestic and trade use. Pottery, jars, and tiles reached distant markets. Durable materials connected households and commerce alike. Every product reflected ingenuity and practical necessity. Craft production underpinned cities' economic foundation. Merchants depended on reliable, high-quality goods. Urban wealth flowed from skilled, disciplined hands. Trade and craft intertwined across Byzantine society. Luxury items displayed craftsmanship and imperial taste. Patrons commissioned works for churches and palaces. Artisans transformed materials into lasting cultural artifacts. Beauty reinforced social hierarchy and civic pride. Guilds safeguarded techniques against secrecy loss. Knowledge survived through careful mentorship and tradition. Skills passed through generations ensure economic resilience. Craft preserved identity of Byzantine urban life. Urban economies thrived on interdependent production networks. Each workshop contributed to wealth and stability. Artisans, merchants, and consumers formed living ecosystem. City life depended on coordinated labor carefully. Every guild reinforced community, order, and loyalty. Collaboration strengthened both social and economic bonds. Work, skill, and trade shaped empire's resilience. Byzantium endured through organized craftsmanship and enterprise. Faith flowed through every heart and palace. Orthodox Christianity guided emperor and citizen alike. Belief shaped governance, law, and daily life. Religion intertwined with empire's enduring structure. Church rituals marked every season and event. Priests led ceremonies in sacred spaces. Processions reinforced connection between ruler and divine. Faith legitimized authority across sprawling provinces. Icons adorned walls of holy and civic buildings. Mosaics reflected divine stories and imperial power. Every image reminded citizens of sacred order. Devotion permeated urban and rural life alike. Education reinforced Christian teachings consistently across empire. Children learned scripture, morals, and civic duty. Clergy trained future administrators and spiritual leaders. Faith and governance remained inseparable in purpose. Holy days united citizens in shared devotion. Festivals and ceremonies strengthened collective identity. Communities bonded through prayer, song, and ritual. Religion shaped social cohesion and loyalty profoundly. Imperial decrees referenced God and sacred law. Emperor ruled as God's representative on earth. Faith legitimized temporal authority consistently and visibly. Spiritual guidance shaped political and military decisions. Monasteries became centers of learning and piety. Monks preserved knowledge while praying diligently daily. Scriptures and classical works survived through careful stewardship. Religion fostered intellectual and cultural continuity simultaneously. Art expressed faith in striking visual narratives. Mosaics, icons, and frescoes conveyed divine stories. Devotion became visible across city and countryside. Every creation strengthened imperial Christian identity. The empire's legal codes reflected Christian principles. Justice aligned with moral and spiritual ideals. Law and faith guided citizen conduct daily. Orthodoxy structured society through divine example. Icons mediated personal devotion and community worship. Faith reached into homes and private lives. Believers connected with divine through sacred images. Religion became both personal and political foundation. Pilgrimages reinforced spiritual and imperial networks consistently. Relics and holy sites attracted crowds from afar. Faith united diverse peoples across empire's vast lands. Devotion created shared sense of Byzantine identity. Clergy advised emperors in both sacred and civil matters. Patriarchs and bishops influenced policy subtly yet firmly. Spiritual authority guided empire's administrative structure effectively. Church and state maintained symbiotic relationship across centuries. Orthodoxy survived threats of heresy and invasion. Faith provided continuity during political upheavals. Religion preserved cultural identity under external pressures. Belief anchored citizens through turbulent historical periods. Every citizen encountered religion in daily life. Faith shaped ethics, morality, and social expectations. Orthodox Christianity defined the empire's shared values. Religion became core of Byzantine civilization's identity. The Patriarch held immense spiritual authority daily. Clergy guided emperors in religious and political matters. His voice influenced decisions across imperial administration. Faith and governance intertwined through his council. Patriarch presided over major ceremonies and festivals. Processions reinforced unity of church and state. Citizens witnessed sacred authority in public rituals. Religion legitimized imperial power through ceremonial display. He mediated disputes among clergy and nobles. Guidance ensured stability across urban and rural provinces. Decisions reinforced orthodoxy throughout empire's territories. Patriarch shaped doctrine while supporting imperial interests, advising emperors on law and policy regularly. Clerical insight guided justice and social order. Moral authority influenced governance subtly yet profoundly. Every decree carried spiritual and political weight. Patriarch maintained relations with foreign churches carefully. Diplomacy included faith alongside statecraft consistently. Church networks connected Byzantium to distant lands. Authority extended across both spiritual and temporal spheres. Excommunication enforced discipline and reinforced obedience effectively. Religious sanctions shaped political and societal behavior. Clergy wielded power through spiritual consequences carefully. Faith guided citizens' allegiance and actions daily. Selection of patriarch influenced imperial legitimacy visibly. Emperors consulted clergy when choosing high officials. Appointment reflected balance of spiritual and temporal authority. Church and throne remained mutually dependent throughout history. Patriarch oversaw monasteries and charitable institutions diligently. Monks and nuns supported spiritual and social services. Clergy shaped education and healthcare networks systematically. Religion became cornerstone of community welfare structures. During crises, Patriarch rallied population to unity. Faith reinforced resilience against invaders or disasters. Spiritual leadership strengthened morale and civic obedience. Authority inspired confidence during turbulent events repeatedly. Councils and synods convened under Patriarch's guidance. Doctrinal debates shaped orthodoxy and policy together. Decisions preserved unity across empire's diverse territories. Church authority mediated both belief and governance. Patriarch represented Constantinople at imperial ceremonies. Public visibility reinforced spiritual and temporal hierarchy. Citizens witnessed unity of throne and altar. Ceremony communicated authority beyond written law clearly. He influenced appointments of bishops throughout empire. Clergy loyalty reinforced religious and political order. Church hierarchy aligned with imperial administrative network. Faith and governance remained deeply interconnected consistently. Patriarch guided interpretation of sacred texts carefully. Doctrine shaped cultural, social, and political life. Religious authority structured empire's moral framework. Every teaching reinforced imperial and spiritual cohesion. His legacy shaped Byzantium's enduring identity permanently. Spiritual and temporal authority reinforced empire's stability. Patriarchs bridged heaven and emperor's earthly reign. Faith anchored society through centuries of change. Marble gleamed beneath sunlight and incense smoke. Churches rose with soaring domes and arches. Every structure reflected devotion and imperial ambition. Architecture symbolized faith, power, and unity. Builders worked tirelessly with stone and timber. Master craftsmen sculpted intricate reliefs and columns. Every detail reinforced sacred and civic significance. Creation became labor of both skill and devotion. Hagia Sophia dazzled with shimmering golden mosaics. Light poured through stained windows, illuminating worshippers. Domes soared above vast marble floors gracefully. Space became manifestation of divine and human artistry. Monasteries tucked into mountains or city edges. Monks lived in silence, prayer, and labor. Walls preserved knowledge, scripture, and cultural heritage. Isolation fostered contemplation and disciplined spiritual practice. Churches served as centers of community life. Citizens gathered for worship and civic events. Sacred space united believers across social classes. Architecture reinforced spiritual and social cohesion consistently. Mosaics depicted saints, emperors, and biblical stories. Every tessera reflected artistry, faith, and storytelling. Visual language communicated doctrine to all viewers. Beauty became vessel for instruction and devotion. Construction required coordination of engineers, laborers, and artisans. Materials sourced from across the empire efficiently. Projects reflected imperial wealth and organizational skill. Architecture became testament to both power and faith. Grand facades impressed citizens and foreign visitors alike. Exterior decoration displayed imperial and religious authority. Every column, arch, and portal reinforced hierarchy. Monuments communicated Byzantium's spiritual and temporal strength. Monasteries preserved manuscripts, relics, and art carefully. Knowledge survived political upheavals and invasions. Centers of learning thrived in sacred isolation. Faith and scholarship is entwined under disciplined guidance. Interior decoration emphasized celestial themes and divine order. Mosaics, frescoes, and icons inspired awe constantly. Worshippers felt connection between heaven and empire. Art reinforced spiritual teachings in immersive space. Funding came from emperors, nobles, and donations. Patrons ensured completion of ambitious construction projects. Generosity reflected piety and political influence simultaneously. Architecture became symbol of social and spiritual status. Sacred spaces hosted liturgy, council, and ceremony. Faith structured both public ritual and private devotion. Architecture shaped experience of community and hierarchy. Every gathering reinforced spiritual and civic unity. Churches became centers of pilgrimage and prestige. Holy sites attracted visitors from across regions. Faith, culture, and economy converged around sacred spaces. Construction left lasting mark of Byzantine identity. Engineering innovations supported massive domes and vaults. Structural mastery impressed contemporaries and inspired successors. Technique combined Roman, Greek, and Eastern knowledge. Architecture embodied empire's intellectual and cultural synthesis. Every church and monastery reflected empire's vision. space, art, and labor communicated divine authority. Sacred construction shaped both spiritual and political identity. Byzantium endured through devotion, artistry, and ambition. Councils convened in grand, vaulted halls. Bishops gathered, robes flowing with authority. Debates echoed through marble chambers solemnly. Decisions would shape faith for generations. Doctrinal disputes required careful deliberation daily. Theological precision guided every argument presented. Consensus ensured unity across diverse regions. Orthodoxy depended on clarity and agreement. Doctrinal disputes required careful deliberation daily. Theological precision guided every argument presented. Consensus ensured unity across diverse regions. Orthodoxy depended on clarity and agreement. Imperial representatives observed debates closely and silently. Emperor's influence guided procedural and doctrinal decisions. Church and state intertwined in governance subtly. Unity relied on careful coordination and compromise. Councils addressed heresy and doctrinal confusion rigorously. Errors were corrected to preserve spiritual integrity. Clergy enforced consensus among bishops diligently. Faith remained consistent despite local variations. Decisions influenced liturgy, prayer, and worship practices. Clergy and laity followed standardized ritual across regions. Unity strengthened through shared religious observance. Doctrine became visible in everyday spiritual life. Controversies included nature of Christ and icons. Debates shaped theological, political, and cultural landscapes. Councils resolved disputes with both reasoning and authority. Decisions reinforced cohesion within Byzantine society. Edicts issued during councils had lasting impact. Imperial support ensured compliance across distant provinces. Church hierarchy maintained alignment with codified doctrine. Unity depended on shared belief and obedience. Councils documented decisions meticulously for posterity. Records preserved theological clarity and historical precedent. Future generations consulted texts to maintain orthodoxy. Knowledge survived through disciplined record-keeping. Participation of bishops reflected empire's diverse regions. Eastern and Western provinces contributed perspectives consistently. Dialogue fostered understanding across linguistic and cultural boundaries. Consensus bridged differences to preserve empire-wide faith. Councils shaped education and monastic practice carefully. Clergy training aligned with doctrinal decisions strictly. Monasteries disseminated approved teachings to wider populace. Orthodoxy penetrated every aspect of spiritual life. Disputes sometimes caused temporary tension and unrest. Resolution reinforced authority of emperor and patriarch. Faith became instrument of unity and governance. Doctrine stabilized empire during turbulent centuries. Decisions influenced art, iconography, and church architecture. Visual representation aligned with approved theological principles. Sacred spaces reflected council-sanctioned beliefs consistently. Every element reinforced collective spiritual understanding. Councils forged identity across social and political spheres. Belief and law intertwined through deliberation carefully. Unity depended on consensus and shared tradition. Orthodoxy became cornerstone of Byzantine civilization. Tensions rose over sacred icons and imagery. Imperial edicts banned their veneration strictly. Churches removed and destroyed precious artworks. Faithful debated fiercely across empire's cities. Iconoclasts argued images promoted idolatry dangerously. Defenders claimed icons inspired devotion and piety. Conflict divided clergy, nobles, and commoners alike. Devotion became battlefield for spiritual authority. Monasteries resisted destruction of sacred treasures. Monks preserved icons in secret hiding places. Faith and tradition clashed with imperial orders. Devotion persisted despite persecution and upheaval. Civil unrest spread through towns and provinces. Violence marked confrontations over sacred disagreement. Loyalty tested between emperor and church leaders. Conflict threatened unity across Byzantine society. Councils attempted to resolve theological disputes cautiously. Debate oscillated between orthodoxy and reform demands. Decisions sometimes inflamed rather than healed divisions. Empire struggled to maintain religious and political stability. Western Church increasingly diverged from Constantinople's authority. Disagreements over liturgy, jurisdiction, and doctrine persisted. Papal influence conflicted with imperial ecclesiastical control. Tension grew between East and West continually. The Great Schism formalized separation in 1054. Mutual excommunications deepened spiritual and political rift. Churches divided culturally, theologically, and administratively permanently. Unity across Christendom fractured irreversibly during this period. Iconoclasm erupted intermittently across centuries. Some emperors enforced bans, others restored icons. Cycles of destruction and restoration marked Byzantine history. Faith and power intertwined in repeated conflict. Artistic heritage suffered irreparable losses temporarily. Mosaics, frescoes, and icons were defaced repeatedly. Surviving works gained greater reverence and symbolic importance. Culture endured despite ideological and political turmoil. Religious debates influenced succession and imperial policy. Clergy and laity aligned with competing factions. Faith became instrument of political maneuvering carefully. Disputes shaped governance and public perception alike. Populations became divided in loyalty and belief. Communities fractured along theological and political lines. Social cohesion was tested under spiritual pressure. Resolution required diplomacy, compromise, and negotiation. Western Crusades further strained relations with Byzantium. Political alliances complicated religious disagreements subtly. Faith intersected with strategic and military ambitions. Religion was inseparable from empire's political landscape. Ultimately, conflicts shaped identity and resilience. Orthodox Christianity emerged stronger through trials endured. Doctrine, art, and practice adapted through adversity. Faith remained foundation of Byzantine civilization's entrance. Iconoclasm and schisms left lasting legacy. Lessons endured about unity, authority, and belief. Byzantium preserved spirituality despite internal and external pressures. Religion defined empire across centuries of challenge. Byzantine envoys traveled across distant kingdoms carefully. Letters and gifts carried imperial intent delicately. Diplomatic missions preserved empire's strategic advantage. Alliances strengthened borders and influenced neighboring states. Marriage united ruling families across continents. Princesses became symbols of political negotiation. Dynastic ties reinforced treaties and mutual obligations. Bloodlines intertwined to stabilize regional relationships. Treaties outlined boundaries, trade, and military obligations. Signed agreements ensured temporary peace effectively. Ambassadors witnessed compliance and monitored loyalty carefully. Contracts combined law, trust, and diplomacy visibly. Allies provided military support during critical campaigns. Troops reinforced threatened frontiers and distant provinces. Strength relied on coordinated planning and commitment. Collaboration prevented enemies from gaining undue advantage. Europe and Asia became connected through diplomacy. Byzantium leveraged geography to influence multiple regions. Empire navigated complex web of competing interests. Strategy relied on skill, patience, and foresight. Gifts conveyed respect, wealth, and imperial power. Exquisite items reinforced status and influence abroad. Generosity encouraged loyalty and goodwill consistently. Prestige extended Byzantium's reach beyond immediate borders. Envoys carefully negotiated terms under watchful eyes. Each word carried weight for imperial strategy. Missteps could provoke conflict or weaken alliances. Diplomacy required subtlety, patience, and timing. Byzantine intelligence informed alliance decisions discreetly. Understanding local politics guided imperial approaches effectively. Knowledge of rivalries shaped diplomatic priorities. Information ensured empire avoided unnecessary conflicts. Strategic marriages sometimes prevented war or rebellion. Families became conduits of trust and influence. Children embodied future alliances and political stability. Dynastic planning shaped centuries of geopolitical strategy. Alliances shifted based on threats and opportunities. Flexibility maintained empire's position among great powers. Careful observation preserved long-term imperial advantage. Adaptation ensured survival amidst changing regional dynamics. Treaties included clauses for trade and tribute. Economic incentives reinforced political and military bonds. Material wealth strengthened relationships alongside loyalty. Commerce became tool of Byzantine statecraft effectively. Byzantine strategy blended coercion and persuasion carefully. Power projection combined diplomacy and military readiness. Rulers negotiated with both caution and authority. Empire balanced multiple interests with delicate precision. European kingdoms respected Byzantium's seasoned diplomacy. Asian powers sought treaties and strategic alignment. Empire thrived through networks of loyalty and trust. Influence extended across continents and cultures continuously. Alliances sometimes involved religious and cultural considerations. Orthodoxy reinforced loyalty among neighboring Christian states. Shared faith influenced political and military cooperation. Religion and diplomacy intertwined seamlessly in Byzantine policy. Strategic alliances preserved empire through centuries of turmoil. Networks prevented isolation and maintained geopolitical influence. Byzantium endured where others faltered due to miscalculation. Skillful diplomacy became cornerstone of imperial longevity. Imperial marriages forged bonds across distant kingdoms. Princesses traveled with retinues and ceremonial grandeur. Dynastic unions created political trust and loyalty. Bloodlines intertwined power with strategic diplomacy. Gifts reflected Byzantium's wealth and sophistication. Gold, silk, and jewels impressed foreign courts. Generosity reinforced alliances and encouraged cooperation. Every present carried both value and symbolism. Treaties outlined obligations, privileges, and territories clearly. Ambassadors ensured understanding and compliance meticulously. Agreements maintained peace or secured military support. Words on parchment guided decades of diplomacy. Marriages often ended rivalries peacefully and strategically. Union of heirs prevented succession disputes effectively. Dynastic planning extended influence across generations. Political stability rested on careful familial negotiation. Gifts accompanied envoys during official ceremonies. Luxury items displayed wealth, taste, and refinement. Prestige encouraged loyalty from allied rulers consistently. Exchange reinforced Byzantium's image as cultural center. Treaties balanced power between multiple competing states. Clauses included trade, tribute, and military obligations. Written agreements codified expectations and prevented misunderstandings. Diplomacy relied on precision, patience, and foresight. Strategic marriages connected Byzantium with Europe and Asia. Princesses and princes embodied alliances symbolically and politically. Bloodlines created channels for influence and communication. Dynastic diplomacy extended empire's reach effectively. Gifts sometimes served as subtle reminders of supremacy. Objects symbolized imperial authority and divine favor. Ceremonial exchange maintained respect between rulers carefully. Presentation reinforced Byzantium's enduring prestige and influence. Treaties mediated disputes and prevented conflicts successfully. Contracts formalized relationships between empires and kingdoms. Signed terms ensured cooperation and shared obligations. Diplomacy blended power with legal and social authority. Marriage negotiations involved careful observation of politics. Families assessed loyalty, ambition, and strategic value. Union was both personal and political arrangement. Dynastic choice influenced stability across regional alliances. Gifts celebrated treaties, anniversaries, and successful negotiations. Splendor demonstrated emperor's attention and cultural refinement. Generosity reinforced long-term political and social bonds. Every object communicated careful thought and power. Treaties served as instruments of Byzantine soft power. Agreements influenced neighbors without resorting to warfare. Diplomatic tools maintained empire's position and security. Written word became weapon of political influence. Marriage, gifts, and treaties formed intertwined strategy. Each reinforced the other's effect across diplomacy. Empire survival relied on skillful orchestration of tools. Byzantium thrived where strategy and culture converged. These practices extended influence across centuries steadily. Alliances persisted through change, conflict, and ambition. Power endured through careful negotiation and symbolic gestures. Byzantine diplomacy became an enduring model of statecraft. Spies moved silently through foreign courts discreetly. Their eyes observed, ears captured every secret. Information flowed back to Constantinople carefully. Knowledge became a weapon of strategic advantage. Ambassadors doubled as intelligence gatherers subtly. Conversations, gifts, and meetings revealed hidden intentions. Observation informed treaties, alliances, and military plans. Empire acted with foresight based on insight. Network of agents spanned Europe and Asia. Merchants, monks, and travelers carried secret reports. Every detail shaped Byzantine decision-making effectively. Empire relied on accuracy and reliability consistently. Codes and ciphers protected sensitive diplomatic correspondence. Encrypted messages ensured secrecy across vast distances. Only trusted officials could interpret information correctly. Security maintained empire's advantage in foreign relations. Informants reported troop movements and frontier activity. Military intelligence guided imperial deployments precisely. Knowledge of enemy strength prevented unnecessary conflict. Preparation ensured success in strategic operations continually. Espionage extended into economic and political spheres. Trade agreements, rivalries, and succession plans monitored. Empire remained informed about potential threats promptly. Information shaped both diplomacy and internal policy. Spies sometimes infiltrated hostile or competing courts. Observation revealed intentions, loyalties, and alliances carefully. Intelligence became a tool of both offense and defense. Knowledge allowed Byzantium to negotiate from strength. Patriarchs and diplomats occasionally coordinated intelligence gathering. Faith and politics intertwined to monitor loyalty. Church and state collaborated subtly in empire's interest. Information flowed through multiple trusted channels reliably. Counterintelligence prevented espionage against Constantinople effectively. Rivals' agents were detected and neutralized swiftly. Empire safeguarded secrets critical to survival. Security maintained authority and influence abroad consistently. Reports reached emperor's inner circle discreetly. Decisions relied on analysis of gathered information. Wisdom guided action across both diplomacy and war. Knowledge became backbone of imperial strategy carefully. Espionage influenced marriage, treaty, and alliance negotiations. Understanding rival intentions shaped diplomatic posture effectively. Secret knowledge gave Byzantium leverage in negotiations. Intelligence ensured favorable outcomes without open conflict. Merchant caravans sometimes carried hidden intelligence discreetly. Trade became cover for covert observation and reporting. Economic and military insights traveled together subtly. Information flowed alongside goods across borders continuously. Agents' reports shaped long-term strategic planning. Empire prepared for threats before they emerged. Foresight preserved Byzantium against shifting geopolitical dynamics. Knowledge reinforced empire's security and diplomatic advantage. Espionage combined with diplomacy ensured survival. Intelligence guided policy, trade, and military operations. Byzantium thrived through observation, analysis, and action. Empire endured where information met strategic foresight. Byzantium faced enemies on multiple frontiers simultaneously. Persians threatened eastern borders with relentless pressure. Arab forces advanced along Mediterranean coasts swiftly. Bulgars challenged northern defences with repeated incursions. Normans raided southern territories unpredictably and fiercely. Empire balanced defence with diplomacy skillfully. Threats required coordination of army and resources. Constant vigilance preserved stability across vast lands. Fortifications strengthened key cities against invasion effectively. Walls, towers, and gates defended critical points. Engineering, strategy, and manpower ensured enduring protection. Architecture became lifeline for imperial survival continually. Alliances mitigated pressure from multiple adversaries carefully. Marriage, treaties, and gifts secured temporary peace. Diplomacy complemented military readiness across contested regions. Empire navigated threats with foresight and calculation. Intelligence informed deployment of troops and resources. Knowledge of enemy movements enabled strategic positioning. Spies and scouts monitored borders diligently daily. Observation prevented surprise attacks and costly mistakes. Naval fleets secured seas against Arab incursions. Ships patrolled coastlines, protecting trade and cities. Control of waterways ensured economic and military advantage. Maritime strength reinforced empire's overall security consistently. Border provinces hosted frontier armies permanently. Garrisons maintained watch over vulnerable territories carefully. Local populations supported defense through labor and loyalty. Every soldier reinforced empire's survival strategy effectively. Counterattacks and raids kept enemies uncertain constantly. Byzantine generals struck when advantage appeared fleetingly. Tactical flexibility preserved territorial integrity across centuries. Adaptation ensured empire survived relentless external pressure. Tribute payments occasionally bought temporary peace strategically. Enemies accepted wealth over open conflict cautiously. Resources redirected to internal stability and construction. Negotiation balanced power with limited military engagement. Fortified towns became centers of resistance and supply. Citizens endured sieges with leadership and discipline. Every stronghold represented resilience and strategic foresight. Defense extended beyond armies into civic participation. Diplomacy, espionage, and military power intertwined seamlessly. Empire balanced threats through coordinated multifaceted strategies. No single approach guaranteed long-term security entirely. Combination of tools ensured survival across volatile borders. Seasonal campaigns maximized resources and terrain advantages. Army movements synchronized with supply and weather. Planning anticipated enemy actions and environmental challenges. Strategy reflected experience, knowledge, and foresight continually. Internal politics influenced response to external threats. Emperors weighed noble loyalty against military necessity. Civil stability reinforced capacity to resist invasion. Unity was crucial for effective frontier defense. Conflict cycles shaped empire's adaptive strategies carefully. Each generation learned from past victories and losses. Military doctrine evolved with changing threats and technology. Experience guided preparation for future challenges steadily. Byzantium endured where others fell to pressure. Strategic balance preserved borders and political cohesion. Empire survived centuries through vigilance, flexibility, and strength. Threats were met with calculated skill consistently. Byzantine emperors navigated complex Western relationships carefully. Popes claimed authority over Christian realms boldly. Diplomacy required balance between respect and sovereignty. Church and state interests often intertwined subtly. Letters and envoys carried messages across mountains. Negotiations addressed trade, faith, and political disputes. Communication preserved alliances and prevented misunderstandings. Every word influenced perception and future decisions. Marriage and gifts sometimes eased tensions effectively. Dynastic unions created bonds with Western rulers. Prestige and generosity reinforced influence abroad steadily. Byzantium extended soft power through ceremonial diplomacy. Doctrinal disagreements caused friction with Rome persistently. The Filioque dispute deepened theological division gradually. Liturgical differences strained ecclesiastical cooperation carefully. Religion became instrument of political leverage subtly. Councils and synods attempted to reconcile positions. Delegates debated doctrine, ritual, and hierarchy extensively. Success was rare. Failure often reinforced division. Unity remained elusive despite careful negotiation efforts. Crusades complicated relations between East and West. Western armies sometimes challenged imperial authority directly. Allies became potential threats in volatile circumstances. Diplomacy required constant vigilance and flexibility continuously. Trade agreements maintained economic exchange alongside political ties. Merchants carried wealth, goods, and intelligence across borders. Commerce reinforced cooperation, despite spiritual disagreements. Economic dependence complemented diplomatic negotiations strategically. Emperors hosted papal envoys with ceremonial precision. Rituals reinforced respect and maintained decorum meticulously. Public appearances communicated authority and mutual recognition. Every action reflected political and spiritual signaling. Alliances with Western rulers were often temporary. Power shifted with changing dynasties and threats. Byzantium relied on skillful adaptation over time. Relationships required patience, foresight, and constant adjustment. Military cooperation occasionally bridged political and religious gaps. Joint campaigns required coordination and trust carefully. Faith justified intervention, but politics guided strategy. Church and empire navigated intertwined spheres continuously. Negotiations involved subtle pressure and calculated concessions. Threats balanced with promises and incentives consistently. Diplomatic skill prevented outright confrontation effectively. Byzantium maintained influence despite powerful neighbors persistently. Rivalry with emerging Western powers intensified over centuries. Normans, Venetians, and Franks challenged imperial prerogatives. Strategic patience preserved empire's interests over time. Tactical compromise avoided unnecessary war and loss. Papal relations shaped perception of Byzantine legitimacy. Recognition by Rome carried symbolic spiritual weight. Authority over Christian populations required delicate management. Faith and politics intertwined across ideological lines. Cultural exchange accompanied diplomatic efforts continually. Art, literature, and theology traveled with envoys. Western understanding of Byzantium evolved through interaction. Diplomacy shaped both perception and enduring influence. Byzantium survived where diplomacy complemented military and economic power. Relations with papacy required constant balance and negotiation. Empire endured through strategic patience and skill. Western interactions defined empire's place in broader Christendom. Seljuk forces pressed Byzantine eastern frontiers relentlessly. Battles raged across Anatolian plains fiercely. Fortresses and garrisons struggled under repeated attacks. Empire faced constant threat from rising powers. Ottoman Turks emerged as new formidable enemies. They advanced steadily into weakened Byzantine territories. Strategic cities and key forts fell gradually. Defense required coordination, resources, and sacrifice daily. Byzantine armies defended hills, rivers, and passes. Soldiers fought bravely despite overwhelming odds consistently. Tactics relied on intelligence, terrain, and skill. Every battle tested empire's resilience and strategy. Diplomacy attempted to delay inevitable confrontations temporarily. marriage, treaties, and tribute occasionally secured peace. Allies were sought, but often unreliable under pressure. Empire balanced negotiation with military necessity carefully. Constantinople remained key defensive bastion enduringly. Walls, moats, and fortifications repelled repeated sieges. Engineering and manpower preserved the heart of empire. Every attack highlighted both strength and vulnerability. Loss of Anatolian provinces weakened imperial revenue. Population displacement strained remaining administrative structures severely. Economic and military support dwindled under constant pressure. Empire relied increasingly on internal resilience and strategy. Seljuks disrupted trade routes across eastern regions. Merchants faced raids and unpredictable political instability. Supply chains faltered under persistent military threats. Commerce and sustenance suffered from ongoing conflict. Ottomans learned from Seljuk campaigns strategically and efficiently. Their disciplined forces exploited Byzantine weaknesses consistently. Empire faced adversaries with growing sophistication. Pressure intensified as external threats became relentless. Alliances shifted unpredictably among neighboring states. Europe provided limited support against Eastern encroachment. Byzantium increasingly isolated diplomatically and militarily gradually. Survival depended on careful strategy and foresight. Cities fortified smaller garrisons to resist attacks. Population endured hardships, taxation, and fear constantly. Defenders relied on loyalty, courage, and leadership. Every fortress became testament to empire's endurance. Naval power attempted to protect Aegean islands. Fleets patrolled waters against raiding and invasion. Sea routes remained critical for trade and defense. Control of waterways offered limited, but vital advantage. Diplomacy attempted to divide enemies strategically. Negotiations delayed confrontations, buying precious preparation time. Peace agreements were temporary and fragile effectively. Empire survived intermittently through clever manipulation of threats. Seljuk and Ottoman pressure reshaped frontier dynamics. New strategies emerged in response to evolving threats. Constant vigilance and adaptation defined survival strategy. Byzantium endured centuries through careful defensive planning. Final centuries showed empire shrinking under relentless assault. Eastern Anatolia fell, weakening empire's strategic depth. Pressure continued until Constantinople became last stronghold. Defense, diplomacy, and endurance delayed, but could not prevent. Byzantium's struggle against Turks exemplified resilience and tragedy. Empire survived centuries, despite relentless external pressure. Defense shaped military and administrative legacy profoundly. Pressure tested empire's strength, strategy, and spirit consistently. Factions competed fiercely for imperial authority constantly. Nobles, generals, and courtiers plotted relentlessly. Succession disputes weakened empire from within consistently. Civil wars drained resources and morale rapidly. Military leaders sometimes seized power forcibly and abruptly. Ambitions clashed with loyalty to reigning emperor. Chaos disrupted administration, taxation, and law. Stability suffered under frequent leadership changes repeatedly. Urban populations endured unrest, famine, and violence. Cities became battlegrounds for rival claimants. Civilians suffered displacement, property loss, and fear. Every rebellion left scars across society profoundly. Court intrigue manipulated succession and policy subtly. Plots, assassinations, and coups undermined governance secretly. Emperors navigated treachery with caution and skill. Trust was rare in Byzantine political life. Provincial governors rebelled against central authority repeatedly. Control over distant territories became increasingly fragile. Frontiers weakened as internal strife consumed attention. Empire struggled to defend borders effectively simultaneously. Economic strain intensified due to constant infighting. Revenue collection faltered under competing factions' demands. Military campaigns were delayed or abandoned entirely. Civil wars weakened empire's ability to respond. Religious disputes sometimes fueled political conflicts subtly. Clergy aligned with factions for influence strategically. Church and state intertwined in internal power struggles. Faith became instrument of political maneuvering carefully. Succession crises caused temporary fragmentation of authority. Multiple claimants vied for thrones simultaneously. Empire faced uncertainty during each contested transition. Instability eroded confidence among citizens and allies. Popular uprisings occasionally erupted during weak leadership. Peasants and urban mobs challenged noble authority frequently. Rebellions demanded military suppression and political compromise. Social cohesion fractured under prolonged disorder repeatedly. Civil wars drained manpower and military readiness. Frontiers became vulnerable to external threats swiftly. Defense and diplomacy weakened as internal turmoil persisted. Empire survived only through resilience and skill. Assassinations and palace coups created lasting fear. Trust became fragile among officials and generals. Paranoia shaped imperial decisions subtly but powerfully. Governance relied on vigilance, loyalty, and manipulation. Internal instability undermined diplomatic leverage abroad effectively. Allies questioned Byzantine reliability and commitment frequently. Rivals exploited divisions to gain advantage quickly. Empire's prestige eroded through repeated internal conflict. Efforts at reform often failed under opposition. Bureaucracy and administration struggled to enforce authority. Reforms were fragile without stable leadership continually. Institutional weakness compounded political fragmentation severely. Despite turmoil, empire endured centuries through resilience. Leadership, strategy, and loyal factions preserved survival. Civil wars shaped character, adaptability, and legacy. Byzantium survived internal chaos with remarkable endurance. Trade routes faltered across shrinking imperial territories. Merchants faced raids, instability, and high taxation. Revenue from commerce declined steadily over decades. Economic foundation weakened under continuous pressure and loss. Provinces in Asia Minor fell to Turks. Loss of fertile lands reduced agricultural output. Grain and resources became scarce within empire. Cities depended increasingly on distant and unstable supplies. Key ports and coastal cities were captured. Byzantium lost control of Mediterranean trade arteries. Income from tariffs and tolls diminished rapidly. Economic power shifted toward rising neighboring states. Population decline worsened economic strain continually. Famine and disease followed territorial contraction relentlessly. Labor shortages reduced production and military recruitment. Urban centers suffered as wealth and manpower dwindled. Inflation eroded value of Byzantine currency steadily. Gold and silver coins became scarce and debased. Trade agreements lost stability under financial uncertainty. Economic decline amplified political and military vulnerability. Tax collection became inefficient and corrupt frequently. Officials exploited provinces, undermining trust and stability. Local revolts reduced central control and revenue. Empire struggled to fund defense and administration. Luxury production and guilds declined under pressure. Artisans and merchants migrated or closed workshops. Cultural and economic activity shrank in cities. Tradition and wealth were both under threat. Loss of Egypt and Syria impacted agriculture profoundly. Key grain supplies no longer flowed to Constantinople. Dependence on remaining territories increased vulnerability further. Food scarcity strained population and morale consistently. Trade with Western Europe decreased significantly over time. Venetians and Genoese dominated Mediterranean commerce gradually. Byzantium became increasingly reliant on foreign allies. Economic autonomy eroded under rising commercial competition. Military campaigns drained remaining resources repeatedly. Funding defense became increasingly difficult and inefficient. Soldiers went unpaid, reducing loyalty and morale. Empire's capacity to resist external threats diminished. Monetary instability affected both urban and rural areas. Markets became unreliable, and goods scarce frequently. Citizen confidence in imperial authority weakened further. Economic decline fueled social and political unrest. Loss of key provinces diminished strategic depth. Frontiers became harder to defend consistently. Territorial contraction reduced tax base and manpower. Empire relied on core territories alone for survival. Economic decline intertwined with political instability continuously. Internal conflicts and civil wars exacerbated fiscal crises. Empire's resilience depended on dwindling resources cautiously. Every loss magnified the challenges Byzantium faced. Cultural and artistic production slowed under financial strain. Patrons could no longer support ambitious projects. Art, architecture, and scholarship suffered under scarcity. Economic decline left lasting marks on society. Byzantium endured centuries, despite shrinking wealth and lands. Survival depended on adaptability, strategic planning, and resilience. Economic hardship shaped final centuries of empire. Decline foreshadowed eventual fall to rising powers. Crusaders entered Constantinople with calculated determination. Shields clashed as chaos spread through streets. Citizens fled or hid beneath shattered roofs. Imperial authority collapsed under sudden violent assault. Churches were looted for gold and relics, mosaics destroyed, icons shattered, treasures stolen mercilessly. Sacred spaces became scenes of devastation. Faith and heritage suffered irreparable loss that day. Palaces burned, walls defiled, halls ransacked completely. Emperors and nobles were captured or killed. Political structure disintegrated amidst overwhelming chaos. Legacy of centuries was shattered overnight entirely. Crusaders divided plunder among themselves swiftly. Wealth of empire flowed into Western hands. Economic backbone collapsed, leaving citizens destitute. Constantinople's prosperity was stripped bare brutally. Public outrage and despair swept through city. Survivors mourned loss of family and property. Social cohesion fractured under trauma and violence. Community endured collective grief and humiliation constantly. Latin Empire replaced Byzantine authority temporarily. Western rulers attempted to govern alien population. Resistance continued in pockets across remaining territories. Byzantium struggled to preserve identity and culture. Religious tension intensified between East and West. Churches placed under foreign control forcibly. Schism deepened as Latin influence dominated briefly. Faith and politics collided, with devastating consequences. Military and administrative structures were dismantled thoroughly. Empire lost experienced leaders, trained soldiers, and resources. Recovery required decades of struggle and rebuilding. Resilience tested through adversity and foreign occupation. Art, literature, and architecture suffered tremendous damage. Manuscripts destroyed or transported to Western Europe. Cultural continuity was disrupted 4 generations thereafter. Knowledge and heritage became vulnerable to loss repeatedly. Economic networks collapsed under foreign control effectively. Trade, agriculture, and industry were severely disrupted. Revenue streams disappeared, weakening imperial authority permanently. Recovery demanded resourcefulness and external support strategically. Exiles fled to remaining Byzantine territories urgently. Nobles, clergy, and artisans sought refuge elsewhere. They preserved traditions and knowledge secretly and carefully. Faith and culture survived despite catastrophic displacement. Reconquest attempts faced persistent opposition from Latin forces. Byzantine generals struggled to reclaim lost cities. Political fragmentation hindered effective military response consistently. Empire strength was reduced for decades continually. Memory of sack shaped imperial consciousness deeply. Trauma influenced policies, fortifications, and diplomacy thereafter. Crusader betrayal left lasting scars in history. Loss served as cautionary tale for posterity. Byzantine resilience eventually restored parts of empire. Efforts rebuilt Constantinople, institutions, and defenses gradually. Identity and faith endured, despite temporary occupation. Empire recovered, but decline was accelerated subtly. Ottoman forces surrounded Constantinople with overwhelming strength. Cannons thundered, walls shook under relentless bombardment. Defenders held courageously despite dwindling numbers. Every street and tower became battleground fiercely. Emperor Constantine XI commanded remaining soldiers valiantly. Citizens joined defense in desperate unity. Hope and fear intertwined in the city. Final resistance marked end of Byzantine resilience. Massive cannons breached Theodosian walls finally. Ottomans poured into the city through gaps. Chaos consumed streets, markets, and sacred buildings. Life and legacy were extinguished violently. Palaces burned, treasures looted, knowledge dispersed immediately. Churches desecrated, icons shattered, history scattered. Citizens faced death, enslavement, and displacement. Centuries of civilization were lost forever. Defense strategies failed against superior Ottoman technology. Wall fortifications could not withstand massive artillery. Empire survival depended on manpower and strategy. Overwhelming firepower rendered centuries of preparation futile. Population resisted heroically, but suffered catastrophic losses. Every corner of the city bore scars. Survivors fled to Europe and surrounding regions. Trauma endured through memories and chronicled accounts. Imperial lineage ended with Emperor Constantine XI. Dynastic continuity was broken irrevocably and tragically. Symbols of authority and culture were extinguished. Empire's political and spiritual identity collapsed completely. Ottomans established control over the fallen city. Constantinople became Istanbul under new rulers' authority. Transformation reshaped culture, religion, and administration. Byzantine legacy survived in memory and scholarship. Western powers watched but failed to intervene effectively. Europe's attention divided, unable to prevent conquest. Allies arrived too late to alter fate. Timing sealed the empire's final destiny forever. Trade, culture, and administration shifted rapidly under Ottomans. Economic and social systems adapted to new rulers. Byzantium's influence persisted in art and learning. Legacy continued despite political disappearance of empire. Church and religious institutions faced suppression and reorganization. Orthodox Christians maintained faith under new authority. Traditions preserved despite political and social transformation. Spiritual resilience outlasted imperial power completely. Artistic and architectural heritage inspired new generations. Mosaics, manuscripts, and literature influenced Renaissance Europe. Knowledge survived in monasteries and foreign collections. Byzantine culture echoed beyond political demise continuously. Fortifications, walls, and city planning influenced future designs. Engineering and architecture reflected centuries of innovation. Legacy endured in structural ingenuity and strategy. Military and civic planning informed successive empires. Fall marked conclusion of over a millennium. Empire endured through wars, diplomacy, and culture. End symbolized both tragedy and historical transition. Byzantium's story became legend for posterity worldwide. Memory preserved through chroniclers, art, and scholarship. Historians recorded empire's rise and ultimate fall. Lessons of strategy, resilience, and adaptation survived. Byzantium's legacy shaped history long after collapse. Byzantium stood between East and West continuously. Roman heritage met Greek intellect and culture. Empire bridged classical knowledge with emerging Europe. Its position shaped politics, trade, and ideas. Classical Roman law survived Byzantine codification carefully. Corpus Juris Civilis influenced generations across centuries. Justice, governance, and legal principles endured globally. Empire preserved foundations of modern European law. Greek philosophy was studied, copied, and preserved. Scholarship flourished in monasteries and imperial libraries. Ideas of science, ethics, and logic survived. Byzantine education bridged antiquity and medieval thought. Art and architecture displayed both grandeur and innovation. Hagia Sophia rose, a symbol of imperial majesty. Mosaics, frescoes, and icons inspired future generations. Aesthetic achievements became hallmarks of Byzantine culture. Orthodox Christianity shaped religious life and identity. Church and state intertwined across spiritual and political spheres. Patriarchs guided doctrine, governance, and society cautiously. Faith became foundation of Byzantine civilization enduringly. Diplomacy preserved empire through shifting alliances and threats. Marriage, gifts, and espionage reinforced imperial influence. Negotiation complemented military strength in strategic balance. Byzantine skill delayed conquest for centuries effectively. Military innovation safeguarded civilization from persistent enemies. Greek fire and fortifications protected vital cities. Elite soldiers defended territories across land and sea. Tactics and planning reflected experience and adaptability continually. Trade connected Constantinople to Europe, Asia, and Africa. Silk, spices, and grain traveled imperial routes. Economy and commerce underpinned cultural and political power. Byzantium thrived where geography and strategy intersected. Civil administration balanced central authority and provincial governance. Bureaucracy maintained tax, law, and military order. Empire preserved order despite internal unrest and pressure. Governance lessons influenced later states and societies globally. Cultural synthesis blended Greek, Roman, and Eastern traditions. Philosophy, art, and religion merged uniquely in empire. Innovation and preservation coexisted across centuries consistently. Byzantium became model of civilization and continuity. Religious councils defined doctrine and maintained unity carefully. Debates shaped theology, orthodoxy, and ecclesiastical policy. Iconoclasm, schisms, and reforms tested resilience repeatedly. Faith endured despite ideological and political conflict. Architecture influenced Europe, the Mediterranean, and beyond. Domes, walls, and churches inspired future builders. Engineering blended function with grandeur and beauty. Byzantine design echoed across centuries and continents. Artistic legacy preserved identity through turbulent times. Manuscripts, mosaics, and icons survived wars and occupation. Culture endured even when political power vanished. Legacy inspired Renaissance and modern artistic movements. Resilience defined Byzantium through wars, plague, and decline. Diplomacy delayed conquest. Adaptation preserved survival. Civilization endured despite external and internal pressures. Lessons of endurance resonate across history universally. Empire's fall shaped Eastern and Western trajectories. Ottoman conquest transformed political and cultural landscapes. Europe received preserved knowledge and artistic influence. Byzantine experience informed governance, warfare, and trade. Legacy in Orthodox Christianity persists in modern world. Faith, ritual, and ecclesiastical traditions endured centuries. Cultural identity shaped regions from Greece to Russia. Religious and societal influence transcended imperial collapse. Legal, artistic, and administrative frameworks influenced successor states. Modern Europe inherited codified laws and governance models. Scholarship continued through monasteries, universities, and libraries. Knowledge persisted despite centuries of political change. Byzantium balanced worlds, ideas, and cultures harmoniously. East met West under imperial guidance steadily. Civilization became a conduit for continuity and adaptation. Empire's influence bridged eras and civilizations seamlessly. Urban planning and fortifications inspired architectural thought. walls, roads, and civic structures endured generations. Engineering foresight preserved cities against external threats. Byzantine urban legacy influenced city building long-term. Economic strategies maintained trade, tribute, and wealth effectively. Markets connected continents through imperial oversight carefully. Commerce, diplomacy, and military planning intertwined seamlessly. Economic lessons informed future empires and states. Byzantium's diplomacy was subtle, strategic, and patient. Alliances, espionage, and negotiation shaped survival. Skill in balancing power ensured longevity continually. Empire endured through intellect as well as strength. Art, literature, and education reflected refined civilization. Scholarship preserved classical knowledge and innovative ideas. Intellectual achievements inspired successors in Europe and Asia. Byzantine influence echoed through centuries of learning. Lessons in resilience, diplomacy, and adaptation endure. Empires can rise, persist, and adapt strategically. Civilizations survive through culture, intellect, and foresight. Byzantium exemplifies endurance amidst adversity and change. Its story is remembered across continents and time. Legacy bridges classical past and modern world. Byzantine civilization remains a beacon of endurance. History remembers an empire between worlds forever.